Please take their seat. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the meeting of the Beaumont City Council. Today is Tuesday, January 31st, and today's invocation will be given by Associate Pastor Brian Abel of Calder Baptist Church. If you'll please come forward, Pastor Abel, and give us the invocation. Everyone, please silence your cell phone. If you so choose, please stand, remain standing for our pledge. Thank you.
Please join me in prayer. God, we are mindful that service remains a worthwhile endeavor, and we ask that during this time we have a shared spirit to elevate and improve the quality of life in Beaumont. Help the dialogue to be a productive one, an energizing one, full of discernment and wisdom, and we are grateful for today. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join us in our nation's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Abel. May I have the roll call, please?
Mayor Mouton.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Present.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Samuel.
Present.
And Councilmember Neal.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Today we have one presentation by ExxonMobil regarding contributions funding for a local restoration project with Ms. Nikisha Burns, and anyone you have with you, please come forth. She's Public and Governmental Affairs Manager, and Rosina Denny is the Refinery Plant Manager. If you would please come forward for your presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing today?
Great.
Awesome. So we are here to make a quick presentation, so we're not going to be before you long. We would like for the council, the city manager, Parks and Recreation Director to join us. Down if you could.
So you want us to come down now?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Is he?
Mr. Raggett? Yeah. He's
So
here.
as you all are coming down, I'll just give a little bit of information about our donation. As the only playground in the neighborhood, the Charlton-Pollard Park serves as an essential role in our neighbors' lives, especially our youngest ones who need a safe area to play and make memories with their friends and loved ones. When our neighbors voiced concern about the condition of the playground, we listened and took action to collaborate with the City of Beaumont's Park and Recreation Department to be a part of the solution. For the last 120 years, 120th year, this year in May, we have called Beaumont home. We live here, we work here, and we're proud to do our part in this initiative that will help so many in Charlton-Pollard who rely on the park as a place to gather, host events, and express community pride. While we are the first publicly announced private donor to this project, and I'm sure there will be others, and we encourage others to support as well, we recognize this effort will require involvement from throughout the Charlton-Pollard community, and we have some of our neighbors here today. If you would all please stand. We have the Neighborhood Association President. We know that it's going to take a collaborative effort. We want to thank the City Council for your support. We worked really hard with Mr. Kenneth Williams. We met many times to just kind of iron out what it was that was needed. And also now we've been working with your new amazing Mr. Raggett. He's been awesome. I've been bugging him. I've called him. I actually got in a city vehicle and a truck and took a tour of the community with him. So I can tell you that he's working really hard to improve the neighborhood, the look and feel of the community. And so thank you both. And so we want to present, and I'll give Rosina an opportunity if you want to add anything. She's our refinery manager.
You know Nikisha is amazing, so she's always got all the perfect points, but honestly, this is for the community, this is for our kids, and this is for one that we've worked so well together in order to present this opportunity to you. So without further ado, let's give you a nice, big, I love that.
And not only not only do we have the vanity check, just of course we want to get a picture, but we also brought y'all a real check to deposit. So we're really excited. I just want to encourage the community to give our city council, the city manager, as well as the director of parks and recreation, an opportunity to really get in, do the groundwork. It's going to take time, y'all. It is going to take time. These folks are working really hard for this community, and they will soon be talking about some more great things that's going to come. But give them time. I promise y'all they're coming to CAP, and they are going to come to the Neighborhood Association. They are going to give you updates. We've already talked about it, and so patience is needed. It's coming. Greatness is coming. We are also working with the city manager and his team to do a collaborative grant to educate our community about recycling. Lamar University has a recycling program, and I'm not for sure if you all knew that. There is actually a session this Saturday from 11 to 1 at the Montaigne Center, and you can draw recycling as you like, and it's no cost. It's at no cost. And so this grant that we're working with the city on is a grant through the EPA, and it's up to, I believe, $4 million. It's up to $4 million. That's at the discretion of the city to apply for how much ever, but I know that there are a number of entities that are working to provide letters of support. And so that will be coming hopefully soon. Mr. Williams and his team, they're working really hard trying to get some funding so that we can educate our community on how to properly recycle. Because you know when you drink that nice cold Coke, you just can't throw it in a trash can. You actually have to wash it. There's a proper way to recycle. So this grant funding will give us the opportunity, along with a number of neighbors, to educate the community on how to properly recycle. So I'm gonna stop talking because I'm like a Baptist preacher. I will talk forever, okay? Thank you.
Behind that check. Perfect.
Can we stay in place and get our neighbors to come in?
Yes, Miss Cheryl, you cannot sit out there.
And any of our other neighbors?
We need more of those kind of proclamations.
Well, again, to ExxonMobil, thank you so very much. We're so grateful for your participation and what you have contributed to the community of Beaumont. We were all surprised because we had not seen the check. So we were just as surprised as everyone in the audience. And so if anyone else would like to make a comment, Councilmember Samuel.
Yes, well, I didn't know about the check, but I remember several weeks ago when someone came up asking about what was going to be done about Charlton-Pollard Park. And Ms. Burns, I remember that look you gave me. So I knew what was coming. This is not new. This is something you all have done year after year after year. You've always been good neighbors, good partners, and you continue to do that. Charlton-Pollard Park, where it is now, is because of the efforts between ExxonMobil and the city of Beaumont. So thank you very much for all that you do, those things seen and those things unseen. So thank you.
Councilmember Turner, and then Councilmember Felshaw.
To ExxonMobil, thank you for stepping up and leading. I remember when we recently were talking about industrial agreements, and I made a comment about industrial companies stepping up and making donations to a park enterprise fund. The thing about it is, we didn't even have to ask you guys. You stepped up and led by example. And that's the type of example I think we need in order to move this city forward, and we appreciate you guys. To the Charlton-Pollard family, I look at you guys as family. This is only the beginning of the new direction we're going to move this entire community in. Not just your neighborhood, but the entire community. So we're going to continue to work together. And we're going to continue to lead by actions and not words. Thank you.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Yeah, again, just thank you, but this is how we make Beaumont better. The partnership between public and private, business and civic leaders, this is how we get it done. And it's going to take that partnership to really move Beaumont forward. So thank you so much for the partnership.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Durio.
Just want to thank ExxonMobil for setting the bar so high. Other folks are watching. You see the example that they set. I hope more people will follow. Thanks.
Mayor.
Thank you. And City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Cities are often not fortunate enough to have corporate partners such as Exxon, so Beaumont is truly fortunate and blessed to have such a corporate entity in its midst and doing the things that they're doing. It was a pleasure working with Nikisha, Ms. Burns on this project, and I look forward to the one on the recycling. That's an even probably bigger project dollar-wise than this one. So it was a pleasure, really good to work with, and look forward to working with you again. Thank you.
Also, I would like to, we don't want to leave Mr. Raggett out. Mr. Raggett is a new director for parks, and he came out of the gate just running. And part of that is attributed to our new city manager, who took that department of Parks and Rec and divided it to make sure that our parks were getting the attention that was needed. And Rosina and Lakeisha, I love working with the both of you. Thank you so very much for everything that you do within the city, within this community. And we already know there's more to come for the south end of there's a lot more to come. So again, thank you so very much for your partnership and for really for your heart for that community and for the city. And again, you've set the bar really, really high, and We're hoping somebody try to outdo you. Absolutely. So again, thank you so very much. So at this time, if you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip to the back of the room. Hand it to the clerk to the front of the room. It is public comment time. And if you haven't done so, before you speak, we need you to address the podium. You will have 3 minutes. The green light will come on when it's time for you to start speaking, and the red light will be your indication that your time is up. Thank you.
Steve Parker, 3801 Dunn, Groves, Texas. Item number 9 on the agenda.
We ready to go? I'm Steve Parker. I'm a United Associations pipe fitter, and I'm here in favor of adopting the 2021 Uniform Plumbing Codes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Richard Lord, 6906 Redwood Falls, Pasadena, Texas. Item number 9 on the agenda.
Thank you, Council, and Mayor Mouton. I really appreciate y'all giving me this opportunity. My name's Richard Lord. I'm a business agent for Plumbers Local 68 here in Beaumont. One of the things I wanted to speak on is item number 9, the adoption of the 2021 Plumbing and Mechanical Codes, the Uniform Plumbing and Mechanical Codes. As an installer, there's no financial benefit to me on either code. I come to you as an installer, and as an installer, you know, a lot of times, you know, the surgeon, he knows what kind of surgery you need. The mechanic knows what kind of car or what you need fixed on your car. Well, this is the time when the plumber knows what plumbing and mechanical codes are better. And the reason we like these codes is that they tell us to go from point A to point B. And you'll hear a lot of consultants, a lot of people that have never turned a wrench in their life, you know, but as a person that's been a licensed plumber for 42 years, you know, I've been out in the field. Doesn't look like it right now, but I have been out in the field. I actually did turn a wrench for a while. And as a plumber, I wanted to know, when I walked on that job, I would put the pipe in from here to there and it'd pass code. I don't want the inspector to come and say, well, I think you ought to do it this way. What that did was cost the contractor money, cost us time, cost us the effort of putting stuff in, and with the uniform set of codes, we know exactly how to install these systems. And I wish you'd just hear from an installer and a plumbing contractor and mechanical contractor what they want. And you're going to hear a lot of other people that, like I said, have nothing in this business whatsoever except to sell books, you know. So I hope y'all look at who actually does the work and listen. And if y'all have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Nielsen, 4910 Tacoma Street, Houston, Texas. Item number 9 on the agenda.
Mayor, council members, thank you for taking the time to hear from me today. I'm here representing the Greater Houston Partnership, I got the wrong one. Associated Builders and Contractors for Greater Houston region. We represent the commercial and industrial builders. And I'm not here to really talk about, and I'm here to talk about item number 9, the codes, but I'm not here to talk about the details of it, because to be honest with you, I'm not a plumber. I don't know the details of it. I represent the industry. We deal with politicians. I know at the last board meeting, you had some mention of what the city of Houston, what they're doing with their codes. And you really need to look a lot closer at what the city of Houston is currently doing with their codes. They're having a complete review of what which codes they're going to be doing. And typically what happens with something like that is, or what the city is doing here now, is they brought in a private contractor to facilitate these meetings, to review all aspects of all the codes that they have. The rumor on the street, or word on the street, which is pretty strong, is that they are going to be moving away from the uniform plumbing code, the uniform codes in general. They're moving towards IPC simply because of the problems that they've had getting buildings approved that received Harvey Harvey-funded monies to reconstruct some of the housing that they had. If you've read any of the papers, you've seen the problems that they've had, the bad press that they've gotten. The IPC is what FEMA uses as their gold standard. They're having difficulties because most of their codes are under the UPC, and it's causing them a great deal of problems. Now, Harvey was 4 years ago. You never know when the next storm front's coming through. I really want you to think about, or go back and look at it. Don't take my word for it. Go talk to city council member. Go talk to Carol Haddock over in Public Works. Ask them why they're doing a review of their codes. It's pretty clear from the first meeting that they had that the unions are not happy. This is Mayor Turner's final term. This is his final year of his final term. Typically, when you want something to go through that's not going to be favorable or not going to be seen well, you do it during that time. This is something you probably need, as a council, need to go look at so that you can make an informed judgment on how you should move forward as a city yourself. You elected, or the constituents have elected you to these spots. They're assuming you're going to do your due diligence, and I'm just here to give you a little bit of information. Hopefully you'll take that and do with it what you will. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jeffrey, and I apologize, I cannot make out the last name. It's 604 West 13th Street, Austin, Texas. Can you pronounce your last name for the record?
Thanks, Tina. It's Jeffrey Tawawa, and I am here on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors of Texas. I wanted to come here and speak mainly from the state perspective because our state association has been involved in this issue for a number of years. I personally have actually changed 3 jobs over the course of the last 14 years, and each of those jobs, from the home builders to the Real Estate Council and now to ABC, I've dealt with this plumbing code issue. And you've heard about the practitioners, the plumbers, talking about how the effect that this might have on their industry. And the reality is that the reason why the international codes exist is because they are a symbiotic family of codes that all work together. As a general contractor, we don't just deal with one code, we deal with all of them. In Austin specifically, we even have to deal with another one called the International Wildland Urban Interface Code, which is something I'd rather not bore you with, but we have to think about all of them as a family. And the uniform code is not designed to work with the rest of them. And something that I would point out is that if a plumber wants to plumb to the uniform code, they will meet the requirements in the international code and will be permitted to move forward. I happen to serve on the city council in Dripping Springs, again, though I'm not here in that capacity, but when we've had plumbers come plumb, they just go talk with our building official and they get allowed to move forward. If I'm a international code plumber and I want to plumb in a uniform code area, I will not be allowed to do it because I will not meet the standards in the uniform code. And so I think that's something that's really important to acknowledge, and that's partially why, as my counterpart at my Houston chapter referenced, you have the challenges with the Harvey money. The other thing I think it's important to note is that, I've been working on, with the ICC on getting more and more cities to switch to the international codes because of those challenges. In Austin, I've gone through at least 4 different code cycles where we actually went line by line, amendment by amendment, trying to find a way to make the 2 codes work. And the reality is they don't when you try to force them that way. But the way that you allow plumbers to still plumb the way that they want to, the way that they've been trained, is you keep the international code because they will be able to meet the standards and still be accepted. The last thing I'll point out is partially why this confusion exists is because the state licenses based on a test on both codes. And so my organization for the last 3 legislative sessions has been working on a bill to eliminate the uniform code from the testing requirements. And so that is a bill that we are working on actively right now and will be refiling. We've brought it last 2 sessions. We intend to bring it forward again, and that's something that we're working on that I think is important to note. I sent a letter in. I think will be passed around. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have, but we would urge you to either vote against the ordinance today, or at the very least take the time necessary to really look at the 2 codes and understand the complications between the 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Roberts, 140 Bigner Road, Mandeville, Louisiana. Item number 9 on the agenda.
Thank you. Mayor Mouton and City Council members, today, again, I'm Mark Rhodes, Senior Regional Manager of Government Relations for the International Code Council. I'm here today speaking in opposition to agenda item number 9, to adopt the Uniform Plumbing Code. The Code Council, the International Code Council, is an American not-for-profit organization with over 60,000 members nationwide, and those codes are adopted in every state. We are dedicated to all aspects of building safety, including plumbing, sanitation, and resilience. We have over 380 state chapters throughout the United States. We have 18 chapters here in Texas and 4,200 members here in Texas. We very much appreciate the work of the city's staff in reviewing and plans to update the international codes already adopted by the city, including the International Plumbing Code, or IPC. It's my understanding that the City of Beaumont's team of code professionals met with IAPMO and reviewed the IAPMO's Uniform Plumbing and Mechanical Codes. After their careful professional review, your staff determined that the continued update of the 2021 International Plumbing Code, International Mechanical Code was best for the city and for the local and regional plumbing industry. Texas jurisdictions with populations over 5,000 are required to adopt plumbing codes, and 97% of those choose the International Plumbing Code and the International Residential Code for plumbing provisions. This equates to the IPC protecting over 15 million citizens in Texas. Advancing this agenda item today would undo completed review work and require vastly more extensive review work by city staff because of the, because the UPC is a different code and is not correlated with the other family of international codes. That the city has actually adopted for decades. Passage of item 9 would upend, without justification, plumbing guidelines that have been in place for 3 to 4 or more decades. It will create an undue burden on the plumbing industry and Beaumont staff, as both will need training. If you make this change, plumbing and mechanical professionals would be faced with fewer design choices. Fewer design choices will drive the cost of construction up. Supporters of the UPC, which is adopted in less than 3% of Texas municipalities, attempted a similar end run in the deliberative process in LaPorte, Texas last summer. Fortunately, the Port City Council rebuffed those efforts, in part because of opposition by building safety officials, major retailers including Target, Home Depot, manufacturers like Bassett Corporation, Associated. If I could just close, please vote against. I'm sorry, agenda item 9. And I'd be glad to answer any questions, and I hope to be able to speak to you during the workshop part of the meeting. Thank you.
Richard Anderson, 3069 Deering Lake Drive, Loveland, Texas. Item number 9 on the agenda.
Small correction, that's Loveland, Colorado. I just want the record to be right. It didn't ask for a state, so I just put city in. Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Richard Anderson. I am Director for ICC's Plumbing, Mechanical, and Fuel Gas Efforts for Technical Resources, or PMG for short. I am here today to provide comments in opposition to agenda item 9. I have more than 25 years experience as a licensed journeyman plumber, master plumber, licensed plumbing inspector with medical gas and piping endorsement. I also hold an A refrigeration license with my combination endorsement. So to Mr. Lord's point, I was a contractor. And I was also into the code enforcement or the building safety side of things, serving as a chief plumbing, mechanical, irrigation inspector for the city of Amarillo, residential inspection supervisor with the city of Austin, division manager over all of inspections, commercial and residential, for the city of Austin, deputy building official, city of Amarillo, and my last stint with local government was chief building official with the city of Fort Collins. My vast years of experience have afforded me the knowledge to understand things from both sides, the contractor side and the compliance side. Having codes that correlate together are paramount for success. Now, there have been some false and misleading statements made in reference to the International Plumbing Code. To begin, it is false that the International Plumbing Code is not a prescriptive code. There are thousands of prescriptive requirements housed within this code. In order for me to properly address those claims, the proponent of the other code would have to point out very specific sections that are non-prescriptive in this code. And I could handle that in a technical hearing. I would not want to bore this council with getting down into the weeds of technical requirements. All right. Next is the International Plumbing Code is the only plumbing code referenced in the FEMA Resilient Building Code document. Means automatic approval for FEMA when you use our code. Otherwise, you have to have an engineer analysis at the cost of this jurisdiction to prove 5 specific criteria within any other adopted code besides the ones listed here. Yes, the IPC is the only plumbing code recognized by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations rules for plumbing codes. And then this is the Texas Administrative Code. Any of you can search it. The other thing I want to mention about FEMA is that we are in receipt of a document from FEMA to Iatmos Hugo Aguilera stating that their codes were not part of the 2022 revision of the document I just holded up. So in closing, there are several other comments I would like to take the time to address in the proper forum. ICC requests the same opportunity that IATMO had to receive and present. There should be a fair and impartial opportunity for both organizations to present on their respective codes. Thank you for having me today, and I am available for questions and anything during the work session.
Thank you.
Jeremy Pavlich, 8596 Rice Drive, Lumberton, Texas. Item number 9 on the agenda.
Well, good afternoon again, council, mayor, and staff. You know what? When I played baseball, I used to like batting fourth because there's a lot of people on base and got the chance to knock them in. Let's repeat some of the things that y'all just heard. These people threw it out there. Yeah, we got Home Depot on our team. We got Lowe's on our team. A lot of you remember this because we all have relationships. We talk a lot. When we fought for our Texas State Plumbing Board not so long ago, these are the people that weren't there with me. Those are the people that testified against us. When y'all, City of Beaumont, sent your inspector to be there with us, this is the same conversation we're having then. Let's not pretend that this is new either. I worked with Becky Ames. I worked with Kyle, the city manager before you, Mr. Williams. Worked with Chris Boone, worked with Boyd. We've had these meetings. Everybody's on board. This is the first time I've ever had anybody throw the brakes on this. Personally, I'd love to see this get done for the reasons that Rick Lord gave you. I'm an installer. You want to talk about somebody as a plumber? I'm the best plumber in this room. Probably the best plumber you know. And I could say that. I could say that because my skills are still on display today. I should be building a school right now. But I'm here trying to get our friends to remember who their friends are. They've had the same 4 years that I've had to come up here and tell you about this and meet with y'all. Why drag this out any further? This is why things are hard for us working type. We can't take off work all the time to come up here and fight for what's right. We try to. Man, that gets expensive. It really gets expensive. This is what the installers want. This is what the citizens want. If you get any plumber and you ask them, hey, what kind of plumbing code do you like? They're all UPC. They're all of them. Now, if you ask the builders, the some people who are against having plumbing license and just want to throw up a whole lot of houses and use anybody to do it, yeah, they don't want a stringent plumbing code. They don't want licensing to get in the way. And what's crazy about it, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm for everybody getting a fair shake in this. But the problem we can't move on and do the job that we need to do is because this open border that everybody wants to bring up and talk about, that's the people they use to build those apartments and those big old home areas where they build thousands of homes. Because it takes a long time to train somebody to do plumbing and to train them to do it right. It takes a commitment. Do you know I was one of 30 people to pass my apprenticeship in plumbing? And I wasn't the one that everybody picked either. Because it's a 5-year process where you have to go and you have to stay. You have to not just work a 40-hour-a-week job, but you got to go to school on the weekends to learn this stuff. Another thing they said is, well, you know what? I'm going to respect y'all's time. I think I've said enough about this 4 years worth at least, right? I trust y'all make the right decision. Thank y'all very much for your time.
Thank you. Please refrain.
John Mata, 16303 Amber Brown Drive, Hockley, Texas. Item number 9 on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Appreciate you giving us the time here. John Mata, Senior Director of Field Services for the International Association of Plumbing and Mechanical Officials. Like we said, we were here, you heard our presentation. We know what the plumbing industry wants. Some of the council people last week alluded that none of the contractors of the industry had it. I understand I have my counterparts here addressing the home builder issue with the International Residential Code, the Builder's Code. That is not affected here. Nothing residentially is affected here. It doesn't replace this code. We're merely saying the Uniform Plumbing Code, Uniform Mechanical Code, you can have for commercial application, but we do have provisions that address residential. You had a plumber last week who came here, been here a number of years in the Beaumont area, told you his business is 100% residential. What does he plumb to? And even though the city has adopted the International Plumbing Code, he still plumbs to the Uniform Plumbing and he still gets his permits passed, his jobs passed. So why not adopt it? Why put it off? This is something that's been going on since 2018. Now, I also heard that the city of Houston is moving away from the Uniform Plumbing Code and Mechanical Code that have been adopted there since 1985. This is misinformation. I was part of that same meeting along with some of the other colleagues here in the room. And yeah, they haven't made a decision on the codes, but I can tell you this, it's the same process that's been going on for years and years in the city of Houston. And for years and years, they continue to adopt the Uniform Plumbing and Uniform Mechanical Code. Now, as far as Austin and filing a bill, yes, they're right. There's been a bill filed the last 2 sessions to do away with IATMA and the Uniform Plumbing Code because of special interest groups that are in this state that want to make not cost effective. They're not worried about protecting the citizens of Beaumont. They're more likely worried about protecting their pockets, and that's fine. But we worry about protecting the health and safety of the nation and the citizens of Beaumont, and that's what we should be here concentrating on. Now, those 2 bills failed. We defeated them with the help of industry and stakeholders from all over the state. And just like Mr. Pavlich alluded, when you go down and you start looking at the plumbing and mechanical industry and you ask them, what codes do they want? They'll tell you every single time it's the uniform codes, uniform set of codes. Unfortunately, their boss is usually, in the plumbing departments in the cities, usually somebody that doesn't agree with him. So he's kind of in the minority in that, for better sake. But I'll close by saying that I know that they said that 97% of the jurisdictions are under the International Plumbing Code, only 3% make up the uniform. That 3% constitutes to roughly about 6.5 million people. And I believe they said they were on 15 million. So I thank you for your time, and I'll be here to answer any questions or during the work session during item agenda number 9. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I will call for a motion for approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 1, please, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, Mayor. Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow the expansion of a church in a GC MD2 General Commercial Multiple Family 2 district located at 5250 Hellbig Road. At a joint public hearing held on January 23rd, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request for the SUP for the church with the following conditions. 1, construction plans must meet all requirements by water utilities for any water and sanitary sewer improvements, including any requirements of the city's backflow, pre-treatment, and/or fog program. 2, construction plans shall be in compliance with Section 28.04.006 landscaping and screening requirements. And 3, construction plans must meet all building code requirements. and with recommendation approval of the ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 1. May I have a motion, please?
So move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councilmember
I have
Samuel.
a question, yes. In this, when it states they have to meet the requirements, I was a little confused with the language in the staff report about the parking lot size. So they will have to make sure they adhere to the requirements of the code on the parking lot size?
Yes, sir. So it's part of the ordinance already that you have to have a certain number of parking spaces for the size of the facility as well as the number of pews. And so they'll do that calculation. So it's already in the ordinance, but we want to restate it in this approval so that the applicant's clear.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other comments? No other comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 2, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Council consider a request to revoke PZ 2021-321, a specific use permit to allow an automotive shop in an NC neighborhood commercial district located at 1109 Harriet Street. And in October 2021, City Council approved an SUP to allow an automotive shop at this address, subject to the following conditions. Maximum of 11 vehicles to be on the property at any given time, including customer and employee parking, and all repair must be conducted inside the shop. And 2, recommended for approval.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 2. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Turner.
To staff, I noticed it says one of the first conditions was maximum of 11 vehicles to be on the property at any given time, including customers and employees. Can somebody kind of explain to me how did we observe that to make sure they were not in compliance?
Right. So we continued to get complaints from neighbors about there being too many vehicles stored at this property. Again, the council had approved this specific use permit back in February of 2022, but with the condition that there be no more than 11. Again, we continue to get complaints that there were more than 11. Even in the run-up to this revocation of the SUP, there continue to be more than 11. So that's why we're requesting the revocation.
Okay, so based upon the complaints, we physically went out there and made the observation
Yep.
it was exceeding 11?
Yes, sir. So planner and inspector went out to confirm that there were more than 11.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Durio and Councilmember Samuel.
I myself pass by there at least once, twice a month. Most time they have over 20 vehicles there. And that's since we came and said 11. And they work on them outside. They don't work on them inside the building. It's almost like a storage area. And we've given them plenty of chances, and we've explained to them, Mr. Boone and code enforcement, and they basically just kind of ignored it and said they was going to do what they want to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Samuel.
Yes, I'd just also like to kind of echo that. Many times we hear that Beaumont is not business friendly, and there are concerns about our code enforcement. But this, I've been by there several times, and each time I go by there, I see the violations. And this is something the neighbors don't want. And because of that, I'm not real fancy about revoking or taking someone's privilege away to do business, but this is one that they've continually ignored, and sometimes it has to be done, and that's what I feel at this time.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
One other thing is it's a safety hazard. That corner with all those cars parked there, when you pull up on Park Street to Harriet, you can't see if anything's coming down Harriet or not because of all those cars that's parked there. It's like a blind spot.
Yes.
So it becomes a safety hazard.
Okay. No other comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carry. May I have the reading of item number 3, please?
Mr. Mayor, council consider an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 budget. This is for the general liability fund. It's an internal service fund that captures all costs related to lawsuits, settlements, and claims against the city. And basically, we're asking for an amendment. The original budget was $914,200, with the $500,000 proposed amendment making the amended budget $1,414,200.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 2. May I have a motion, please?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. May I have the reading of item number 4, please?
Council consider an ordinance authorizing the participation in rate proceedings in 2023. On July 1st, 2022, Entergy, Inc. filed this statement of intent to increase rates with each city that retains exclusive jurisdiction over electric rates and services in their area. This proposal would increase rates in this area in an estimated amount of $131.4 million annually, with the result of about $13.50 increase for the average residential customer using 1,000 kilowatts per month. At the time, the council voted to deny the rate increase and allow the steering committee of cities to research and assess proper rates were reasonable and should be accepted. So the committee has reached an agreement with ETI. The parties in agreement in principle authorized $54 million or 4.6 increase. The committee efforts contribute significantly to reducing the initial proposal by 58.9%, and its recommendation of approval of the ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 4. May I have a motion, please?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Doria.
See, on their first request, when they would increase it to $131 million annually, and it would the monthly increase would be $13.50 for the average resident. What's the monthly increase going to be at this new $54 million? What for average residents? What would that monthly increase be?
Less than $13.50. So it hadn't fully calculated or given us a calculated amount yet, but it did reduce it so it's, instead of it being like an increase of 13.1%, it'll be 4.6% per 1,000 kilowatt use. So
it should be maybe a quarter of that, maybe.
yes, sir.
Should be about 5.5 based on the ratio.
Love a good
554.
love a good engineer.
So what would happen if we would deny this?
Well, it's a negotiated rate, so if it didn't deny, if you didn't want to agree to it, we can go back and request something different. I can tell you that most likely wouldn't happen. I think that this is probably the best deal that's going to be made. As a part of the steering committees that are a part of it, they all kind of have to buy into it as well. And so if one or more of the cities decide to kind of pull out, then we would have to pull out on our own, if that makes sense.
Okay. So this is not just Beaumont. This is
No, there's several cities that participate in our the city steering committee. So there's several cities, and like I said, if the city of Beaumont decided not to accept the settlement, then of course we would have to pull out on our own and continue down a different path.
Thank you.
Councilmember Turner and then Councilmember Felshaw.
City Attorney, can you kind of explain to the citizens the difference between us doing our own rates versus other cities similar kind of Houston having a different options? Can you explain to them why do we do this?
So the city of Beaumont regulates its own energy. Cities like Houston allow what's called free market. So individuals get to kind of come in, individuals meaning different companies get to come in and set their own rates. Whereas in the city of Beaumont, we set the rate and that is the rate. And so in cities like Houston, where you have a free market, customers have an opportunity to search or switch between companies. In the city of Beaumont, we do the research and we do the search. It's also why we didn't have any interruption during the winter storm.
Okay, and just to piggyback on that, like you said, the benefit is when you have a city like Houston, if all those companies decided to go up, it would be nothing the city can do to pretty much stop it, correct?
Correct.
But with us, because we regulate our own rates, we can control, similar to what we're doing today, how high we'll go. Like originally we were at, 13%? Y'all got it down to 4.6%. So like you said, a quarter of the negotiation.
So essentially, in order for Entergy to raise their rates in our city, they have to request it. We obviously have a chance to review or deny it. In which case we do, we deny and then negotiate lower rates on behalf of the citizens.
Okay. And lastly, if it's a way like ROI, return on investment, board, can you kind of explain to citizens? We get a lot of calls about lights out, etc. I know sometimes I bother you about it. You don't work for Entergy, but you are helpful and you point them in the right direction. But can you explain to them how do they report that?
Yes, you can report out street light either by calling Entergy. You can also go through the Entergy app or the website and report it directly to them, or you can call 311 and we'll pass it along to Entergy. But Entergy does maintain all of those street lights on the city's behalf.
Thank you. Councilmember Felshaw, then Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, actually, I'm good, but I will say this. Each time that this has come before the council, I have found this council to be hesitant. No one wants to vote on this. I mean, we hate to see an increase each and every time it comes before us, but we understand that with inflation, that's the cost of doing business. But I was just wondering if the staff or maybe somebody on council could remember what was the last rate increase that we had. Todd, do you remember the percentage? Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to, but I thought maybe somebody would have that information. But thank you, Mayor.
That's some information we could report back next council meeting. Mayor Pro Tem Duria.
Just to respond to something that Bart and AJ was speaking about, as far as replacing those light bulbs, they're pretty fast about it. I've called this week. I've spoken to Bart and last week about some lights that were out in Ward 4, and they've already been replaced. So they're pretty quick when they go out. If you call in to 311, and then we'll call it, and then we call it in to Entergy, and they're pretty fast about going out and replacing them, or even installing new ones that are not within the city ordinance as far as how far apart the lights should be. They're pretty fast about that also.
Thank you. Councilmember Getz.
I just want to challenge Entergy to follow ExxonMobil's, especially since they're getting a rate increase.
I was going to say that too. I second that.
Any other comments? All in favor of approving item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 5, please?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 2 to the contract with King Solution Services, Inc. of Houston for the citywide pipe bursting contract phase 1 project. Proposed change order number 2 in the amount of $438,825. And if approved, the new contract amount will be $4,109,525. And this funding source is the American Rescue Fund. And recommendation for approval.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 5. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
I have a motion on the floor. May I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 6, please?
Yes. Council consider a resolution approving the renewal of an annual maintenance agreement with Azteca Systems, LLC of Sandy, Utah, for use by several city departments. CityWorks software is used by the city in multiple departments for managing and maintaining work orders, permits, inventorying cases related to permitting, code enforcement, environmental health, etc. So basically, we're asking for renewal of the maintenance agreement, which will be funded out of the general fund and water fund, and staff is recommending approval of the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. You've heard the reading of item number 6. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? No discussion? All in favor of approving item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 7, please?
Council consider a resolution approving a contract to PM Construction and Rehab, LLC of Pasadena for the rehabilitation of storm sewer lines at 2145 Chevy Chase and 6365 Daisy Street. Sinkhole was formed on the storm sewer line in the backyards of these addresses. The Public Works Engineering staff recommends awarding the contract to PM Construction in the amount of $102,840. A total of 1 week will be allocated for completion of this repair work, and this to be funded out of capital program, and staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 7. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the resolution.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Mr. City Manager, will you please take us into the work session, please?
Yes, Mayor. Council, consider resolution authorizing the city manager to send a letter supporting a maximum rate increase for the Southeast Texas Groundwater Conservation District. This district consists mostly in Jasper, Newton, Hart, and Tyler counties. However, we have some wells in Hardin County that this impacts. So the district is asking the city of Beaumont to support the district and to raise their maximum fee by providing a letter of support. And the district is needing to address this issue in the upcoming legislative session. Is requesting a response by February 17, 2023. I think we have a Mr. Jack Martin.
John
John
Martin,
Martin, I
the general
apologize.
manager of Southeast Texas
Okay.
Groundwater Conservation District, is here to present to council on their behalf.
Thank you. Please come forward, sir.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. I appreciate your time. You guys are kind of in a unique position, whereas you're not in our groundwater conservation district, but as the city manager noted, that you have 3 large wells that are in Hardin County that are in our groundwater district, and you are the second largest producer with it for our district. And I'm here today to ask for your support. Quickly, I'm going to go through a few things just so you have some background on what we are, what we do. And it's really hard. I normally give presentations like this that last about an hour, hour and a half to get the basics in. And I want to try and jam this in about 10 minutes. Please ask questions at any time. I'll be more than happy. But Groundwater Conservation Districts, which came about in 1951 was the first time one was created. Prior to that, with regard to groundwater management, the way it was done was by the rule of capture. It was came out of the state Supreme Court decision that says if you drill a water well and you're putting that water to good use, you can pump as much water as you want. If you drain your neighbor's wells, if you drain the whole county, as long as you're putting that water to good use, they can't hold you responsible for their wells being damaged. It's really bizarre. There are very few instances where you can knowingly damage somebody's property and not be held liable for it, but that was through the Texas Supreme Court. In the 1940s, the state considered taking over groundwater, just like they managed surface water. And I believe it was 4 or 5 consecutive sessions they tried to get that passed, but Texas, they love their property rights, and it failed every single time. But in the late 40s, they came to a compromise, and what it was is they created the Groundwater District Act. And basically, they laid out an umbrella of rules and regulations that said if the folks locally want to manage their groundwater resources, they can, under these rules and regulations, create a district, then manage that resource. They have to have a management plan, rules and regulations put in place, and they go from there. In 1951, the first groundwater conservation district was created up in the High Plains up in the Panhandle called the High Plains Groundwater Conservation District. And they were very unique and one of the sponsors to try and get the state to take over control, because they are part of what is the Ogallala Aquifer. The Ogallala Aquifer is one of the largest aquifers in the world. It stretches out into 6 other states. The issue that Texas has with it is it gets so little recharge relative to the amount of water that they pull out up there for agriculture that it's essentially mining. So the creation of groundwater conservation districts was very beneficial. The most important aspects of that is it's stakeholder driven. My district is the Southeast Texas Groundwater Conservation District. My board president is back there. His name is Roger Fussell. The district's been in existence since 2003. The rules and regulations are put together by the stakeholders. We've got 13 board members, 3 representatives from each of the 4 counties, and 1 board president that is appointed upon agreement from all 4 commissioners' courts. These guys have a wide array of backgrounds, and they steer what is the rules and regulations for our district. Without a groundwater conservation district, the rule of capture prevails, and if somebody wanted to, if we weren't in existence, somebody can come buy the property right next door to one of your wells, put a similar size well in it, pump as much water as they wanted to out of it. As long as they were putting that water to good use, they can drain your wells or impact your wells significantly, and the city would have no recourse. So having a groundwater conservation district to protect your wells is very important. This slide up here, hopefully you guys got a printout of everything, shows all the groundwater districts in the state. Our little 4 counties there to East Texas in that green patch, it's kind of a sleeper. We are actually the 11th largest groundwater district in the state if you take into consideration the 2 subsidence districts and the Edwards Aquifer Authority. This page here is kind of more drama than anything. When groundwater is not managed properly, subsidence can occur, especially in the Gulf Coast Aquifer. We share the same aquifer with the Houston area. It actually stretches from Florida down to Mexico, and it is prone to subsidence. Subsidence is when too much water comes out of the ground, the clays and the soils and everything compact, and the ground sinks. This was a neighborhood development in the Baytown area called the Brownwood subdivision. It was began in the 1940s, but by the late 70s it was completely abandoned because the ground literally dropped over 9 feet, I believe it was. And the really dramatic part about it is between 1960 and 1975, it dropped 4 feet. All the homes that were in there, none of them were on stilts at the time. So the green, the picture you see with all the green there, it is now actually a bird sanctuary. Now, we're asking you to help us in a way that can financially impact the city. And I figure we should kind of walk through a few things before we actually ask you of that. Groundwater conservation districts are funded in one of 2 ways. Property taxes, which is the vast majority of them. About 65 to 70% of groundwater districts get property taxes. The other are by production fees, and most of those base that production fee on every 1,000 gallons of water pumped. Our district has been in existence since 2003, and our production fee has been 0.007 cents per 1,000 gallons for 19 years. Only for the first time late last year did we increase our fee, and that was only by 0.03 of a cent. The reasons we finally increased was essentially twofold. We've been managing the 11th largest district now for just about 20 years with 1 employee. The board has determined that it is time to get me a second person to give me a hand managing the district. In addition to that, over the last 20 years, as we all have, in fact, somebody mentioned it here earlier, costs just keep going up. And if you see that little graph there, our production fees have actually gone down a little bit. So we need to keep up with costs. We need to be able to afford that second employee. And because of that increase that we had to pay for that second employee, we are now at 1 full cent. When our district was created, our enacting legislation and the subsequent special districts code codification of our district has a cap of 1 cent in it. If we wanted to increase our fee millionth of a cent per 1,000 gallons right now, we couldn't do it. We have to ask the legislature to do so. So if we lose any production from our larger users, we have no way to recoup those lost revenues. So our district has two main producers that provide between 65 and 75% of our pumpage fees, our production fees. You guys being the second largest producer, the Evadale paper mill being the largest. And anytime you guys have fluctuations, and especially the paper mill, our budget has to deal with issues. And a good example of how it can be affected pretty radically is when Hurricane Harvey came through, your 3 well sites were inundated and were essentially down for 3 years, which affected us in the neighborhood of 15% of our revenue. And we have a little bit of a reserve, so we didn't need to come to anybody and raise our fee at that time. But now, since we're at the maximum 1 cent, if we need to raise it, we have to have permission essentially from the legislature first. So keep in mind, we're asking for an increase from 1 cent to 7 cents as a maximum cap. We're at 1 cent right now. We went 19 years before we had any increase at all, and it was 0.003 cents per 1,000 gallons. We're not asking for anybody to approve an increase anytime soon, and I don't suspect we will have an increase anytime soon. We're here to ask you to support us and join the other folks who have provided their support to us by putting something on paper for us, so when we do take this endeavor over to Senator Nichols' office, we can show them that we have support from not only the commissioners' courts in the area, but our major users as well. And can we go back one slide? Kind of benefits to the city of Beaumont, local stakeholder. That's important. When something is driven by the state, you have to go over to Austin. We're up in Jasper. Anytime there's an issue, if we're doing something you disagree with, need a new well, there's some sort of issue, you hear about something that's going on over there, we're in Jasper, I can come to you either way. You have local control. You got 13 representatives. They will all be more than happy to work with you. And without a groundwater district in place, managing properly, the state does actually have the ability to come in and create what is called a PGMA, a priority groundwater management area. And when the state creates those, you have very little flexibility on how they manage the groundwater. When our district was created, we issued issued operating permits. Your 3 wells in southern half of Hardin County are permitted for just under 17,000 acre-feet of water. You guys are in a unique position where you have, I believe it's about 49 or 50,000 acre-feet of your own by way of surface water. This is a significant addition to that. So having that volume permitted, I believe to be an extreme benefit. Also, as mentioned earlier, the sites that those wells on are essentially protected. With the groundwater district in place, if another large well decided they wanted to be put in over there, your guys having an existing well in place already, they would have to come to us requesting a permit. They would have to have a hydrogeologic study along with it, which addresses all the impacts, and we would know what that new well might do to yours and move forward from that point. Additionally, even if the city weren't even to use a single drop of the water they have in those 3 wells, most of the surface water providers have a fee just to reserve water, surface water. I'm not sure if you guys do reserve any surface water. We do. Okay, if you do, you're paying a quarter of the actual fee. So right now, 8.25 cents per 1,000 gallons for the LNVA, just to have it sitting there. If you wanted to use that water, that rate goes up to 33 cents. So having that 17,000 or nearly 17,000 acre feet in your back pocket is extremely beneficial. And lastly, again, we're kind of hoping we can get your support. We've got all 4 county commissioners' courts. We got the paper mill. I got an email this morning from one of our other, from the second largest producer in Tyler County, the Tyler County SUD, will be supporting us as well. And the last 2 slides are just kind of information to show you that our groundwater district isn't asking for anything that's too out of line. I mentioned that most groundwater conservation districts are property tax based. These are the majority of the ones that charge production fees. These are actual fees that groundwater conservation districts are producing right now, or charging right now. As you can see, we're far over on the right. I know of no other district charging less than us. And that very last slide, on some of the districts, I was able to find what their legislative caps were. And as you can see us, again, on the end, we have a 1 cent fee right now and a 1 cent cap. And that's all I have for you now, but more than anything, please take away from this is we're not asking for a fee increase. We went almost 20 years without one. We're asking for the ability to do so in the future should one of our larger users significantly reduce their production or cease altogether, so we can replace those revenues.
Thank you.
Questions?
Councilmember Neal,
Thank
Councilmember Felshaw.
So you claim you're not increasing the price now, which is fine, but in the event that you need to increase, do you have to come back before this council for that?
No. We would have, each year our board sets, can set the fee rate at a board meeting up in Jasper. We have a monthly board meeting for the Southeast Texas Groundwater District. We would not, but if you would like to, we could make sure you get our agendas every month, and we'd be more than happy to keep you in the loop.
Maybe this is a question for Mr. Semino, but how does their rate tie back into our water bill?
It's an operational cost. Currently, we pay the 1 cent fee plus half a cent because we're outside of their county region, so it's an export fee. So if we run low, our average daily demand is in the left-hand column, and what we would pay if we ran every single day of the year currently is $46,705.99.
So if they increase to the max that we're giving them permission to do, what would that do to our water rates?
Even increasing to the max would not nudge it that much. It'd be $233,000 would be the max cost, $233,529.
For a simple calculation that I was using for our commissioners' courts visits, as an average household using 5,000 gallons of water, an increase of 6 cents is literally 30 cents per or 30 cents per home per month. And I know that's an oversimplification.
Yeah, and in our case, his calculation doesn't apply quite as much because we pump out of Loeb, but we also pump out of Pine.
And
this
the
rate
export.
is actually it's brought into the system along with everything it costs us to treat the water in general. So the cost per household is distributed across the system as a whole, not just a small group that only uses Loeb, because it all blends together.
But back to answering the original question, so if they increase to the max that they're requesting, that would not affect us to the point that we had to increase water rates?
I don't think so. This is not really, at the current rate of 46,000, it's one of our smaller costs in terms of operational costs in the system. And as you could see from his chart, if we would somehow magically move over to a West End water treatment plant and use LNVA as a source, we would be paying 33 cents per 1,000 gallons. So even if they did raise to 7 cents a gallon, comparatively speaking, it's a bargain.
Well, thank you.
Councilmember Felshaw, then Councilmember Turner.
Thank you for coming today. We appreciate the information. I have to be honest with you, up until now, dealing with this issue, I really wasn't aware that you existed. This is a new item for me, so it's good to be informed. But I'm not really concerned about the end game here, the amount of money that we're talking about. And I understand you haven't increased in 19 years, so it's not like you've been doing this annually. But just curious, typically when there's an increase in anything, you try to go in increments. Why jump from 1 to 7, that hard of a jump? Why wouldn't you do it from 1 to 3, then 1 to 6? And I'm assuming there's a reason for that, and I was just curious what that reason was.
We're not jumping our feet. What we're doing is jumping the cap in our legislation. So,
Right, and I apologize for interrupting. The other point that I did hear is that you do not anticipate increasing that, and I understand that, but you've raised the ceiling.
Yes.
So you do have the
A massive,
potential
yes.
or the freedom to do that, but why would you raise that ceiling so high, considering that you don't anticipate ever doing that, and it's been an increase since 19 years? Why would you not do it in smaller increments?
the amount is to cover the paper mill completely closing. If the paper mill is now 60, 70 years
So
old.
you're taking that to worst case scenario.
Absolutely.
And do
worst
you have a
case
rumor that we don't have?
No, none whatsoever. Although they have shut down one line since the district was created, and just before COVID, they were going to shut down another line. I believe it was corrugated cardboard, and I'm not sure the exact reasoning behind it, but they did not end up shutting that line down. But anytime they shut essentially that would have been a third of their production there. That would have impacted us. Again, it's an old facility, and we just have to plan out, because if they were to close, what's the last day to file a bill is March 10th. So if they were to shut down on March 11th, we would possibly have to make do with a 65 to 70% loss in our revenue for as much as 2.5 years. And that's assuming the legislature, didn't have, had enough time to approve us. So
Okay.
that's
Thank
our
you, Mayor.
thinking.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner.
First of all, thank you for making your presentation. I noticed in your presentation, I seen counties that were surrounding counties, but I didn't see Jefferson County. Where are you at as far as Jefferson County, the county Beaumont actually resides in?
Jefferson County does not have a groundwater conservation district.
Okay, that's what I just want to clarify.
Yeah, they're what we call unprotected. So if your 3 wells were actually just moved south a few miles, they would have no protection. They wouldn't have a permit that says that guarantee, I shouldn't say guarantees, that says you've got set aside 17,000 acre feet of water. Somebody could buy the property right next door and start pumping water to impact yours, or some industrial facility could come in. You would have no protections.
Okay, thank you. And to clarify that is, like, these wells, basically what we do with you guys, they're a good backup agent if we ever run into a situation where we lose water or something to that magnitude in Beaumont, correct?
At a minimum, but you guys, before Harvey, you were using them to the tune of probably about 12 to 13,000 acre feet a year. During the 2010 through 12 drought, you were actually using them near their maximum capabilities. I want to say, when I was looking at numbers, that you were probably closer to 16,000 acre feet on those 3 wells. So, they can be left and used as backup, or, like I said, you guys have been using them, and as I understand it, the idea is to go ahead and continue using them. So,
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important that people understand the need and the why, so thank you.
thank you, sir.
Any other discussion?
I'll answer Councilman Neal's earlier question. In terms of a rate increase, judging by the numbers I was just given, a rate increase, even if they increased it to the max rate, it'd probably take 1/4 of 1% of a rate increase to cover this extra cost. So it's fairly minimal.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for all of the information. We appreciate you coming and explaining to us the importance of what you do.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager,
Okay, Council.
may I have the reading of item number 8, please?
Yes. Council, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to send a letter supporting a maximum rate increase for the Southeast Texas Groundwater Conservation District.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 8. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item carries. Mr. City Manager, will you take us into our second work session, please?
Yes, Mayor. Review and discuss the adoption of the 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code. During our last City Council meeting, we had a presentation on the Uniform Plumbing Code. And during that meeting, there was a request to provide more information from those on the other side of this issue, and also get information from staff and what staff wanted to feel about it. So we're providing that work session to provide that feedback input from staff and any information you might request from the opposite side, which you've heard a lot of it today. So we're going to have Mr. Chris Boone present this item.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, as you can probably see from our opening remarks, there are some strong feelings on both sides of this issue as to whether or not to adopt the International Code Council's International Plumbing Code or the IAPMO's and the Uniform Plumbing Code. You may have received yesterday a letter from ICC which referred to their arguments. They also had included, I guess, 10 or 11 or 12 different letters of support of the ICC. And this issue this discussion, the same discussion we're having today over in LaPorte. And I bring that up just to say that it looks like we're in the eye of that storm now in terms of trying to decide how to move forward. I'm passing out there some, that's the recommendation from our professional staff, and you can see that from their perspective, they would prefer that we stay with the international family of codes, and you can see there are 3 points on there. Again, you may have received some information from IAPMO, you may have received some information from ICC, and if you looked at that, and we can certainly share that information with you, there's just a lot of arguments for and a lot of against. You can see that each group is arguing the other's points, and again, I feel like we're kind of in the middle, so we're trying to really boil it down to the bare argument for why the staff would like to remain with the International Code Council as we have been under that family of codes for the last 20 years. Having said that, I know we had a presentation from Mr. Mata last week. We obviously had some comments made today, and I suspect we'll have some more discussion today. But, you know, it's on the agenda for the council to move forward with the UPC if they so choose, but also a work session to further discuss this and hopefully give staff, the administration, some direction on how to move forward. And then finally, you'll see on that memo we just distributed at the bottom, there's a bit of a flow chart, and that's how we traditionally have done our code adoptions. So every several years, we will take not the latest edition of a code, but we'll usually let the latest edition kind of percolate through other jurisdictions because we don't want to rush out and adopt a code and then find out that there are issues with it. So you can see at the bottom what we typically do is we will take the latest code, review it, we'll review it with our legal staff, and then we will identify any local exceptions that we need to add to it. So, you know, if there's some provision for excessive snowfall or some provision for something that, you know, might be more relevant to our soils, you know, we'll have some local exceptions. We'll add those to the proposed adoption, and then what we do is we roll that discussion out to, you can see here, the Association of General Contractors, Home Builders Association, and then, you know, propose those technical changes to the trades. So in the example of the plumbers, we'll identify significant changes from the prior adoption, but we want to present that to these groups, both to inform them, but also to get feedback and input before we go to a city council workshop to discuss and make our recommendation. And then, of course, at a meeting following that, we would bring back the adoption final code. Again, that's the way we've done it typically for the last 20 years. But again, this year is a little bit different because of, as you can see, we've got a lot of interested parties in this, focusing on the city of Beaumont right now. So, if you have, and again, as you can see in this memo, we didn't touch on a lot of the arguments made by each side. Those representatives can probably add additional information to that. But on the technical basis, we do have our professional staff. We have Boyd Meyer is our building official, as well as Bo Hansen, our deputy building official. And they can certainly answer on the more technical side of things. So anyway, I just wanted to provide all the information as we move forward in this discussion. And my recommendation would be, and Mayor, be up to you and the council, of course, but maybe to bring back the representatives from each group to answer any questions. But
Thank you. Councilmember Samuel.
When did we first begin to review this? As I recall, it has been several years.
we were looking at the latest adoption of the international codes within the last 18 months. The plan was to move forward this time last year, but we got sidetracked with some other things, and I got busy with some other things, and so we are now, the goal was to now this spring move forward with this adoption process spelled out on the memorandum.
So this is not fresh. We started about 2 years ago. It was discussed.
We've been looking at the new codes. We've been in meetings with IATMO and ICC discussing this, really for the last 18 months.
Okay. And with that, is there a cost difference? What would it cost the city if we were to change?
The direct cost to the city would not be that significant. We would have to buy new code books. We would have to train our inspectors to make sure they're certified.
So there will be some cost.
There will be some cost, yes, sir.
And we don't have an idea at this point what that cost would be?
No, sir, but we could provide that.
Okay. Now, because this has come up before, and we've talked about it before, I tried to get an understanding. Now, Texas is one of those that allows both, the
Yes,
UPC and the IPC.
Yes, sir.
And some states use just one, many states. They go by IPC.
Yes, sir.
And it's something like 37 of the states use one code, the international code, and then the remaining states use UPC.
Yes, so let me look real quick. Yeah, at the state level, of the 50 states, 37 have adopted the ICC, 13 have adopted the UPC.
Okay, and the remaining use a little bit of both. There are some that use both. This, like I said, this was discussed several months ago, and in talking with individuals, I've not heard anything objective. Everything that I've heard, well, most that I've heard thus far has been subjective information or criteria as to why one area chooses IPC to follow the IPC and the other the UPC. I've not heard anything substantive that I can make a decision on. And here we are now again faced with making a decision, and I'm not certain what the benefit would be to remaining with IBC, or what would be the benefit to use the UPC. So I'm hoping that there can be some clarity brought to me as we discuss this, something substantive. I don't want to get into the politics of this. I don't want to get into all of that, who feels it's best. I'd like to know some facts, some substantive facts that can give me something to make my decision on. So that's what I'd like to hear.
Right, and again, just real quick, so like you've heard from one side that FEMA doesn't recognize this code for recovery, and then you've heard from the other side that yes, they do, and some of that we, the staff, have not had the ability to kind of jump into some of that back and forth. And so, again, kind of coming out of this, it may be that additional time is required so that we can get you those answers. The kind of the whys.
Can I ask
yes,
you,
sir.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I do need to pause.
Yeah.
When you say additional time, I don't want just something date out there. I need to know how much time.
So in a normal adoption process, it takes us 3 to 4 months. Given the concern and interest in this, I think staff, we're committed to try to get back with council within 30 days. In other words, try to do that outreach and discussion with the trade groups, with the AGC, with the home builders, and have that conversation and get back to council within 30 days.
Ms. Amata, I'm going to ask you,
Mayor,
one moment, excuse me, because I want to address this, because I need to address it in stages as it comes up. You made a statement that it would be a cost for books, and I believe on last week, Mr. Mata said that they would provide the books. Mr. Mata, could you please come and address that statement?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. John Mata, IAPMO. Yes, if City of Beaumont were to adopt the 2021 Uniform Plumbing and Mechanical Codes, we are prepared to offer the books at no charge to the City of Beaumont and the training needed to provide. And also, if I may, that's substantial, being 5 books to 1. That's what you're utilizing now for your plumbing and mechanical installations, 5 books, where we have 1 book, and I have them with me, 1 plumbing, 1 mechanical, all provisions in 1 book.
And y'all are prepared to provide that to the city
Yes.
along with the training?
Yes, to your code enforcement departments and provide the books. Actually, I believe last year, if I'm not mistaken, we given the books to Mr. Meyer and Mr. Hanson and a couple of his inspectors, but we're prepared to do it again. We met last April.
What kind of books?
The plumbing, the uniform plumbing and the uniform mechanical code. Yep.
So then therefore it would not be a cost to the city?
No.
With you providing the training and the books?
None whatsoever. No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Ms. Councilmember Getz.
okay. I am not so much concerned about the cost of the books. I'm concerned about the time, which time is invaluable. I'm concerned about the time that it would take for our staff to learn the new codes, as well as all the plumbers out there. But I want to go back to something that you said, Mr. Boone, and that is that we've been dealing with this for 18 months or so. When you say we, are you talking about city administrative staff, or are you talking about us as a council?
Right. To be clear, it's city administrative staff.
Okay, because I appreciate you clarifying that, because I can tell you the first time I heard about this was last week. And, so we as a council have not been dealing with this for months and months, or almost 2 years. And I think that it has been rumored that we have, and it's not us as a council, it's staff. And going to this flow chart that you provided us, we're being asked to vote on this today, but you haven't gone through the steps of this flow chart. If I understand you correctly, you ordinarily would reach out to the Association of General Contractors, the Home Builders Association, and then technical changes to trades, but you haven't had that done yet. Is that right?
Correct.
And so you're advocating, if I understand you correctly, additional time which you say maybe could be done in as little as 30 days. But you would like to have additional time so that you can go through the steps of this flow chart as the ordinary customary process is with your department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Neal, then Councilmember Felshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of have a different role in this discussion, probably more so than the rest of you guys on council. There was 6 organizations that came up and talked today. The AGC, which I'm a past president of, the ABC, which my company is a member of, Plumbers Local 68, which is the union plumbing group around here that my company is a member of, the ICC, which we are currently using, the IPC, which we're currently using, and the UPC, which we're all friends with John. I say all this to say, the UPC, I don't want to be misunderstood, is not a bad code. And I don't think anybody in this room is saying it's a bad code. With that being said, we've heard from both sides today that are telling us that Houston is in the process of going step by step through both codes to kind of line this thing out and tell us the pros, or tell them the pros and cons of both sides, which I don't think anybody in this room is going to give you the pros and cons of both sides. And so with those guys spending the time and money to do that, and us not being in any rush to get this thing done, I would like to second Councilmember Getz's request and delay this until after those facts are put on the table.
Councilmember Getz didn't ask for a delay.
I did not officially ask that it be tabled, but I will for the reasons that I stated.
But we're in the process of a workshop, though,
Yeah.
to get information.
Yeah. When we get to that point, I will.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Felshaw.
I got some questions.
Yeah, and Chris, I may have misunderstood, but I do believe you answered my question, and that is you can't answer it, and that is in regards to FEMA. I thought I understood that FEMA is not in favor of the UPC. Now, considering who we are in this area prone to hurricanes and floods, for me, that's a huge issue that we have to consider that. But did I understand you correctly that the staff cannot speak to that at this time?
Correct, because we have information from, basically an assertion by ICC saying, UPC is not going to be covered by FEMA for disaster recovery. And then we've got a response from IATMO saying, oh, yes, it can. And then there's a back and forth email. So today, I can't tell you that, I can't recommend, one side or the other.
Well, based on that, again, I want to support what's been said about, let's pause for a minute, let's take a breath, and let's find out the facts concerning FEMA and others. But FEMA, for me, is a huge issue, just considering who we are and where we're at.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner, Mayor Pro Tem Durio, then back to you, Councilmember.
All right, just to make sure I'm following sorry, Mayor. Just to make sure I'm following everything correctly. I've been told y'all have been in discussion with this since 2019. And it's 2024. You just stated 18 months. So I need clarity. Is it 2019 or 18 months?
IATMO's been contacting us for years, asking us to adopt their code, adopt their code, adopt their code. And for years, we've said, we're on ICC, we're on ICC, we're on ICC.
So 2019 or 18 months?
I'd have to go back and look.
That's what I need to know for a fact, because if we're going to talk about this, I want to talk facts. Because right now, we don't know the facts. Mm-hmm. My second thing is this process that you guys are speaking of that you say takes up to 3 to 4 months.
Yes.
When was the last time we actually done this process?
Probably 2017.
Okay, 2017 was the last time we done this process. My next question is, if we've been discussing this for a couple of years, at what point are we going to get to where it quits being a discussion and we have dates, deadlines, and accountability to get things done? Because, since I've been on the council, we do a lot of discussing and we don't have dates, deadlines, and there's no accountability to get things done. At what point are we going to get to that?
Well, you could vote today.
I understand that, but staff isn't ready, and we've been discussing this for a few years. So that's one of my bigger concerns, because in any discussion, any conversation, I do want to lean on staff. And we're the council. we have to make these decisions, but we don't make the money and we don't provide the salaries to do these studies and make these commitments. And that's a bigger concern for me. If council, and it's been action and it's been communication for years, why are we at a point now that where we still don't have the information to move forward and make a decision?
Yeah, and again, as Councilman Neal mentioned, I think Houston is spending money to do the analysis. And so I'm not saying we need to necessarily wait on Houston, but we would definitely be curious to try to follow that process.
Yeah, but once again, I kind of would really like the clarity of the facts. Is it 2019 or is it 18 months? That's the first thing I really would need to make an adequate decision, because 2019, we talking 2023, that's almost 4 years.
Yeah, they've been asking for a long time.
And I do know, I am aware, even when I made my first bid, it was brought up in 2019, and I did a 10, and I have been around. I do know it has been in discussion for that long. So that's why I just want to make sure we actually put the true facts on the table prior to making this decision. And that's one of my biggest concerns. If the council has talked about it, staff has talked about it since that date, at what point are we going to have a hard deadline or goals to reach a decision? I just don't think we can make decisions if we keep operating this way. And it's been a kind of consistent pattern. We got to have goals and deadlines. We can't just keep saying a couple of months, a little bit of time, goals and deadlines. Because 2017 is the last time we did this process.
Yes.
That's a nice amount of time as well.
Right now, we are 3 cycles behind the actual code of what we're working on, correct?
So we're under the 2015. State of Texas is also under the 2015.
But we're in 2023.
Yes.
And we're working on 2015 code?
That's what we're operating out of now. Just like the state of Texas, we're operating off the 2015.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Durio.
So if you've been knowing about this for 18 months, one question. If staff said they're not prepared, then why did you present this to us and say recommendation approval of the ordinance? Then today you give us this and you say you've been having, if you've been knowing about this for 18 months, why isn't this already done? Why aren't you presenting this? Then this whole flow chart should be done by now. Another question is a statement. Everyone that came up and spoke against this uniform code, one from Colorado, one from Louisiana, Austin, Houston. Everyone that came up and spoke for it is from Beaumont.
Not
from
true.
This area right here.
Not true.
Everyone that came up and spoke for it, they were from this area.
I don't think there was one from Beaumont that talked.
I'm talking about, but you don't see these guys here?
You
Yeah,
didn't talk
it was
today.
at least 2, and they came and spoke last week also, Taylor. And this is not new. I've heard about this since I've been on council in 2021. This is not new. This is, we've known about this, and like I said, the staff has been knowing about this for 18 months, and they failed to get this done. He said this is the procedure for approving a code, and they haven't gotten it done in 18 months. Now they want another 30 days, and they presented to us in the agenda recommending approval. And then when we come to the meeting, we get this, and we get a lot of these folks, which are not from Beaumont, not from this area, and Beaumont
from the
is a unique
state.
area. Out of 2 people from not even in this state, they're not even from Texas, they come up and speak against it, and I'm concerned about Beaumont, Texas. I'm concerned about what's best for Beaumont, Texas. Staff has recommended in the agenda that we approve this. The people from today and the people from last Tuesday that were here recommend approval. They gave us reasons why we should do it. And then we have these other folks come up here today, which they've been knowing about it for a long time. They come in. That's one thing about I do not like about this council. They like kicking stuff down the road. We've been working with this for 18 months, and we want to kick it down another 30 days, and then you come back, and we might end up kicking it down another 30 days, and we'll never get nothing done. It's something, and I saved this over and over and over, and you know it, and everybody out there knows it. We were elected to make these hard decisions, not to just keep kicking the can down the road. Make a decision, and we move on to the next issue. So I don't think we need, If they hadn't gotten this done in 18 months, what make you think they're gonna get it done in 30 days? You know? So I think I'm not for delaying this at all. We know about this. This is something we're under the codes from 8 years ago. Things have changed in the building process. I'm pretty sure, I'm not a plumber. Things have changed in plumbing, you know. So we need to be with the times. We need to be with 2023. You know, and this is we're 8 years behind on that already.
Councilmember Samuel, Councilmember Getz, and then Councilmember Neal.
Okay, I want to make sure it's clear. I'm not in a hurry to make a decision. No. But this is not the first time we've heard about this. And I'm a bit concerned that when I look to find information myself to make a decision on what would be best for our citizens here in Beaumont, it was difficult for me to get specifics as to what would be the difference. But I've been around long enough to understand that, yeah, FEMA is they will recognize that's the federal government. And so they would like a federal plan, an international plan. But with that, I also recognize the people who put their hands to the plow many times know what's best for the workers and those that are actually doing the job. And those are the ones that I've heard coming back again and again, asking us to review it, to make a decision that we can move forward on. Yes, many times this council, I'm not in favor of rushing into anything, but we've had time. We as a council, we don't have the expertise to understand everything that's presented to us, and we rely on staff. Now, Mr. Williams, you've just been here, seemed like yesterday. How long now?
Almost 5 months.
Okay, so
4.5.
you understand the dilemma that we're faced with today. And this is not something we need to kick down the road. I would like to hear your thoughts, but at the same time, something needs to be done. A decision needs to be made. And I don't want to make rash decisions based on political viewpoints or ideologies. I need to see some factual differences between the IBC and the UPC. This is frustrating because I don't want to kick a can down the road and show not for another 18 months. But I don't have enough to make a decision. And if I had to make a decision, I would decide based on the facts that I'm receiving from those people here that's putting their hand to the plow every day. Enough said.
Well, Councilmember Samuel, you asked the city manager for his input, so. Okay, so.
That was a question. Dealing with codes, I got my start in government dealing with codes. So dealing with codes are always a sensitive situation. It's going to always be sensitive. One, because you're dealing with people typically with their private property, and no one wants you to tell them what to do. And two, you're dealing with people's livelihood. And like the people that have stood at this podium today to talk to you. And three, you've got the decision makers who've got to govern and regulate all of that and dealing with it. So it's never easy, and it's always a sensitive situation. You know, I can't do anything about what happened 18 months ago. I can only deal with what goes forward from this point, and I'm glad to do that. Evidently, there were some things done that could have been done differently up to this point, for sure. In dealing with codes, it's always to be forthcoming and forthright and have those discussions that you need to have. Unfortunately, you need to have them, and let people have public forums for people to talk and people to express their opinions. But after they do that, you go ahead and council vote and make your decision. You have to make your decision at some point. You know, I don't know if that helped you at all, but you know, you've had this before. You're to discuss, talk about, and nothing's been done. So today you can either make a decision, or I can just tell you that from my point of view and from my word that if you don't, I can say that 6 weeks from now I can have this back on the agenda for you to vote to approve or disapprove with the objective information you need to have to make a decision, or any questions you might have.
Councilmember Getz.
Similar to what Councilmember Samuel said, and maybe, you know, we're both lawyers, we're trained, and you know, trying to get objective information before us to make decisions to counsel our clients. I'd like to hear from Boyd Meyer, because as administrative staff, you can address, I think, tell me if you can't, but some of the technical aspects and differences between the Uniform Plumbing Code and the International Code. How would it impact your department? How do you believe it would impact plumbers out in the field, those that actually do put their hand to the plow? I can tell you, just interestingly enough, I had call to have a plumber do some work at both my house and my office in this past week, and asked him about this agenda item knowing it was coming up. And I think a statement was made earlier by someone that all the plumbers are in favor of switching to the Uniform Plumbing Code. He's not. He pointed out, as I think has also been mentioned today, it would require and necessitate a lot of new education to the plumbers out there in the field and our staff. So, Boyd, can you address my question today? Are you able to do that?
First of all, Mayor and Council, I'm Boyd Meyer. Most of you know me. I'm the building official for the city of Beaumont. I've been with Beaumont since I started at Beaumont in May of 1991. I went up through the ranks. I was building inspector, chief building inspector, plans examiner, deputy building official, and now I've been the building official for close to 9 years. In that process, even back when we were on the standard building code, there is a process that we've always gone through for the adoption of the codes. Sometimes it went fast, sometimes it took more technical work. The codes have a 3-year code cycle, and most of the time, sometimes we adopted it every 3 years, but sometimes here recently with the I codes, we skipped a cycle and we went every 6 years. And this, what we do is, like when the 2018, we adopted the 2015 in February of 2017, and we looked at the 2018 code, and there were some things that we heard from the International Code Council with some of the code hearings that were being, the word was getting out that there were some things in the 2018 code that may go back in the 2021s back to more like the 2015. So when things like that come through that we hear, then sometimes we hold off to see, well, if you know, we adopted in 2017, so to adopt the 2018, we were already past that point where we said, let's just wait till the 2021 and take a look at it. And as far as the technical part, this time around, it's getting a little bit more in-depth than it has been before. COVID came around, we went from paper to digital to CityWorks. That took a lot, and we got pushed back on that. We got behind. We got way behind on inspections, on plan reviews, permitting. We got behind, and so we did over 11,000 permits in 2021. In 2022, we did over 12,000 permits. And so between getting accustomed to the paperless with CityWorks, before that COVID, there are a lot of things that got pushed back. And I'm not trying to make a bunch of excuses. We need to work this. We need more time for technical to get it out, spell on both sides, to put it out there for everybody to discuss, and give us an opportunity with all of those differences to go back to the Home Builders Association, Associated General Contractors, get the technical out to our trade groups like we've got listed on there, and give us a chance to go, because it's getting more complex. This, I think, is more complex than anything we have ever done over the years since I've been with the codes with the City of Beaumont. And so I've got 28, in June will be 29 years in building codes in one department. And this is the most in-depth we will do. And the reason it hasn't been brought to council yet is there's some things we're still working on. And because we get to work on it a little bit, and then we have to stop. We get to work on it a little bit, and then we have to stop, because we got the same staff that's doing all of these permits, inspections, and everything, as well as then stopping to stop and do all of this, we still try to take care of customers first. Our customers are always first. Our contractors, our pre-development meetings on Thursdays, they have been booked up all 9, 10, and 11 o'clock. When we're busy, Beaumont stays busy. And it's great. It's great. I'm glad to see, all the establishments we're getting in Beaumont in the industry and restaurants and everything. That's awesome. But sometimes we have to stop to make sure that that's taken care of first. And then we get back on it. And sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it takes more time. And that's what we're asking for.
And Boyd, thank you for saying that, because it's important for everybody in the room to understand that just because the advocates for changing to the uniform code have been coming, and several times over the years, asking for that to be adopted, does not mean that we as a council have been discussing this. The first time we as a council have discussed this, I believe, was last week. So yes, the advocates for changing may have approached various council members outside of a council session and asked their support for this or that. As a council, we haven't discussed it. And I'm hearing you with 29 years of experience say you need more time because of the complexity of this. But I also heard the mayor say that, we're 3 cycles behind, and you offered reasons why that is the case. Is it going to affect the safety of the public to be still using the 2015 plumbing code, the international code, when it comes out there, putting your hands on? Is that going to have any material significance?
And I'll refer back to earlier what Councilman Neal said. We've got 2 codes that are used here, with the mechanical and specifically a lot of things with the plumbing code. Now, the technical part of that is in depth that we're going to have to get into, as far as the actual safety For individuals, the way the plumbing is done, I don't believe that's the case. And we've got both sides here that could clarify that, because there are some things that even I need to research more because of the complexity of all of the codes. And not just the mechanical and the plumbing, but we want to look at more of how the correlation is with all of our other I codes, the International Fire Code, you know, as far as the building code and so on and so forth, as far as all the correlation that reference in all of the family of I codes. And so that's, again, that's more of the research that we're asking for us to get that. And we can get all that information for you, but again, the complexity this time has been more in-depth that is going to be presented to the council than ever before. It isn't. Before we have been able to do our due diligence, and then we do a presentation when we're ready. We haven't been driven to push to do this the way it's happened this time around.
Councilmember Samuel.
Boy, I've been around you for a while. I have a great deal of respect. I respect your words and what you say you will do. I just ask two things. One is I realize that there's a lot of work being done with staff now, and to do this will take additional time. Is there a possibility that there can be some collaboration with the city of Houston to find out and utilize what they've done thus far to get information as regards to the code and its impact, and how the two different codes are correlating?
Yes.
Would that be possible?
Yes, of course.
Okay, that was my first question. And the second is, what would be a realistic, I'm not asking you for a time just specific, but I don't want to say we can do this 18 months down the road. I just want to know, and if it's 18 months, say 18 months. But I'd like to know from you, what do you think is a realistic time frame to look at being able to make a decision based on something substantive as opposed to just on feelings and emotions? And what would be that time frame?
Since we want to go back and get with, once this research is done more in depth, some of the organizations that we already spoke with, we'd like to go back. So scheduling with them as AGC, home builders and stuff, as far as scheduling and getting a time, we feel like we had discussed that. Staff already started talking about it a little bit. What would it take to go back and go in depth, technically more, get the answers everybody needs, and then present it and bring it back. We were looking at May to June is what our first rough schedule was looking like. So, and it can be sooner than that. It's and that's what we were looking at if in fact it was going to take a little bit, and it could be they could be sooner than that. It's just that we look at the permitting, the inspections and everything, plan reviews and everything, the pace that we have right now, we fit that in. But if it needs to be sooner, then we'll do our best to accommodate and work at it. We'll work at it harder. It's just that's typically what we're looking at. Now, as far as a deadline right now, we don't have a deadline, but we are interested in us adopting the 2021 codes as soon as possible, but we do not have an exact deadline right now.
But you do understand about kicking the can.
I do.
Boyd, let me ask you a question. Do you have the amendments from Austin for 2021 UPC and UMC?
I believe John Matta has sent that to me. Had a couple of emails that was blocked, and I believe I do have them. And in our meeting that we had after Tuesday on Wednesday with John, He said if I didn't have them, then he would send them to me so we could review the amendments.
So were you able to review them?
I have not looked at the amendments for Austin yet. No, ma'am.
Okay. One question that is pressing with me, and I've allowed everybody to speak, and so my question is, we have a recommendation for approval today for this item. What did you base, or Mr. Boone, what did you base your approval, your recommendation for approval for today, for us taking a vote? So we're going back, kicking the can that we need more time, we need to get more information, but you base your approval on some information. Because here you say recommendation is approval for the ordinance to approve the UPC code, Uniform Plumbing Code for 2021. So you based it off of something, and so I'm asking, what did you base it off of? Because you're recommending to the council to approve it.
Mayor, just one point of clarification. The recommendation came from me, and it was to simply get it before the council so that because there seems to be based on, and I think last week was the first time it's been presented to council, but there seemed to be a lot of interest, so that if council wanted to approve it, it would be on the agenda to approve. So that's the reason for the recommendation.
Okay. So we have a recommendation for approval for today. But prior to this, we have not been the first council to see this because it's been going on.
No, ma'am. One point of clarification. It has not been to this city council. The first thing
Ever?
Well, not the 2021 UPC
No, not
or
the
the
2021.
So just a point of clarification. The first time discussion of the UPC, to my knowledge, has been before the council for this code was last Tuesday, okay? And just to give some history, because it came up about 2019, IATMO has come to us, and I assume, sounds like they come to a lot of jurisdictions over time. And usually that goes first to the staff to make recommendations on a professional basis, then goes to the city manager, which was our prior city manager, where you look at it and say, what do we think's best for our city? At the last 2017, we think staying with ICC is the best recommendation for the city. So when you talk about 2019, that's how that process works. So it was never presented to council to adopt the UPC. So I think last Tuesday was the first time council's ever discussed it in the work session. So again, moving forward, as you mentioned, John and his group got us the Austin amendments Friday, I think it was. And so the idea was to try to have this work session today because, again, there was a tremendous amount of interest, and then have the item on in case council wants to move forward with adopting the UPC.
And with that being said, your recommendation was for approval. Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Durio, and then Councilmember Turner. Councilmember, I'm sorry.
You could have gotten this put on the agenda with a recommendation to not approve it, and it still would have been on the agenda and been up to us, but staff recommended approval.
Yeah, my mistake.
Another thing, according your process, as part of the process is code significant change, City of Beaumont Legal, Association of General Contractors, Home Builder Association, and technical changes to the trade. So none of that has been done.
For the UPC, no, sir.
Okay, and so the next one is City Council Workshop. That's where we are now.
So what you've got at the bottom of the sheet, that's the traditional process that we've used for decades.
Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to understand, why are we having this workshop, and why is it up for our review and adoption if those other 5 steps haven't been done yet? I'm trying to understand.
And again, coming out of last week's workshop, there seems to be a lot of interest in getting it approved. And so that's why it's on today. And that's why it's out of order.
Both of those codes seem to have good points, but it seems to me that the local workers here are for the UPI, the professionals, the ones that's out there doing it. Also, they keep saying, how much it's gonna cost to educate the plumbers and the workers, but that's a good thing. It seems like they'll be getting educated up to today's standards. I mean, I can't see what anything bad will come out of that. As far as the technology and maybe the new plumbing procedures and building processes, I mean, that seems like a good thing, not a bad thing. Also, could somebody tell me, they said that FEMA does not accept UPI, UPC, Uniform Plumbing Code. Is that true? I've heard people say they do. I heard people say they don't. If we get something fixed and using the UPC and it's something we're supposed to be reimbursed by FEMA, would they not reimburse us, or would they not pass it?
Right. So as we talked about, we've heard from both sides differing, arguing that point. I think we had some information as late as maybe this morning to that effect. So I would ask maybe a representative from both groups to try to answer that question.
Okay. That's okay, Mayor?
Sure. Sure.
Thank you. Again, Madam Mayor, members of council, Richard Anderson, International Code Counsel. Once again, licensed Texas plumber. I hold in my hand the consensus-based codes and standards document from FEMA, the actual document from FEMA that council can read, you can have, we can distribute it to you. Within this document houses their consensus-based codes. The International Plumbing Code and the International Mechanical Code are the only two codes with blanket approval. Now, I also hold in my hand that letter I mentioned earlier from FEMA to IATMOS Hugo Aguilera, stating that with a wide range of potential codes to be considered, our analysis of the IATMO codes and standards is not part of this update. Now, they do go further on in this letter, which I've been completely honest with everybody on, that yes, you can use a code other than the consensus-based code. But in this letter, it states that several sections of the interim policy note that these codes are eligible if they demonstrated to meet 5 criteria as implemented by the Public Assistance Program and Guide. Okay? That's the requirement. Now, that engineer analysis has to be done at the cost of the jurisdiction adopting those other codes. John will openly admit, I believe, that we cover states that do homegrown plumbing codes. That engineer analysis, there's a cost to that. When I was a building official, anytime I heard the word engineer or tried to tell my customers engineer, they cringed, right? That's an expense, and I can't comment on what that expense would cost this jurisdiction, okay? So I'd be happy to leave these with anybody or send them to you in email.
You can give them to our clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner.
Quick question. Once again, thank you for coming down. But I noticed
Yes,
you
sir.
said blanket approval. The question is, UPC, has it ever been accepted through FEMA?
With an engineer analysis proving 5 criteria, all other codes are acceptable to FEMA according to their document, okay? And I am not a FEMA representative. I'm only reading what's in their document in their letter.
So, using UPC codes, in your opinion, would not prevent the city of Beaumont from receiving reimbursement from FEMA if we use UPC codes to do some of the work?
That is a fact, but FEMA will require you to have that engineer analysis done at your cost, proving that it meets those 5 specific criteria outlined in the guidance document.
But under the international code, we would not have to incur the engineering costs because it's under the international code. Is that right?
Correct. We are listed in the appendix as consensus-based approved codes.
And I'm assuming that's per incident, that we'd have to prove those 5 criteria.
You know, I don't know the answer to that, council member, and I apologize because I'm not with FEMA, and I don't have to deal with it because our codes are in the consensus-based standard, right? So I don't know the answer to that question. Perhaps Mr. Mata does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
No problem, council member. Thank you.
Mr. Mata.
Thank you, Mayor Council. John Mata, Director of Field Services for IAPMO. I do have a document here. The document that Mr. Anderson's alluding to was dated in April 2022. The document I have, and I will be glad to email also, is a FEMA document, and basically what it says, it relates to consensus-based codes, which IAPMO is, not performance-based like the International Code Council. And it says, real quick, the purpose of the memorandum is to provide clarification of FEMA's public assistance implementation. FEMA has included appendix of the CBCC policy containing a list of approved codes, specs, and standards. The list of approved codes, specs, and standards outlined in the appendix is not exhaustive. Applicants are not limited to using these codes, specs, standards listed in the appendix to be eligible for public assistance funding. Applicants who use different state or locally adopted codes, specs, and standards with resilience criteria that are comparable to the more stringent than those listed in the appendix are eligible for funding and will be reimbursed for natural disasters of these costs. I'll state that you have you got cities like Houston. We went through Hurricane Harvey. Didn't have an issue. You have the largest state in the country, California, that goes through earthquakes, fires, and are under the uniform codes statewide. No problem whatsoever. So this information getting sent around, and of course Mr. Anderson alluded that Hugo is one of our employees that works for us. That was last year, early last year in April, dated April. This is dated in September, and this came directly from FEMA, stating that. So the whole premise of IAPMO not being recognized by FEMA is totally false, for a better word.
Okay. Councilmember Getz.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think that I heard that IAPMO was not recognized by FEMA. What I think I heard was that there has to be an engineering analysis done in order to allow that to proceed. Do you disagree?
And that's the document he has. I have not seen his document. I've got the latest document that shows here. Now, I haven't seen anything on engineering analysis. That's the first I've heard of it. I'm not with FEMA. I'm not sure what it was, but this has come up in time and time again.
Okay.
And so anyway.
Again, this might be just further reason why we need to have our staff hit pause and make sure we get this right, because as was stated earlier by, I think, Councilmember Felshaw, we are subject to natural disasters here, just like in California, and we want to make darn sure we're getting this right. So,
well, like I said, City of Houston, went through Hurricane Harvey. It didn't affect them.
And I'm glad you mentioned the City of Houston, because it's also been alluded to that they are undergoing an in-depth analysis in comparison between the International Code and the Uniform Code, and it might be prudent, as was suggested by Councilmember Samuel, I believe, to reach out to them. And Mr. Meyer affirmed that we could collaborate with them and use their information. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Houston's got more resources than we do. And so,
I agree.
If our staff is tasked with doing everything that Houston is doing and still trying to provide constituent service, that's going to be hard to accomplish without hiring more staff. So I like the idea of collaborating with Houston and seeing what they do and wait until they have.
One thing I will caution you on is timeline. There's a timeline in Houston, and it is not in 30 days. It is not, and I'm actually up for one of the co-chairs of one of the committees. I just got informed this morning on the way up here.
What is their timeline?
It was supposed to be the summer, late summer. All the committees have been pushed back at least 30 days. Haven't even started yet.
Okay.
So I'm just letting you know, Houston doesn't move very swiftly.
No government does.
No, and I understand that. But you got to understand, just like you said, that's the fourth largest city in the country that has adopted these codes for over 40 years. They're getting it right. And not only that, I will state that our state's capital, Austin, adopts the Uniform Plumbing and Mechanical Code. And those amendments that I sent Mr. Boyd Meyer last April, you know, and tried to reconnect with him. Is there anything else we have to do? We provided you the code books and the amendments. Anything else? This is the code that the plumbers want, the industry, the mechanical people.
Not all plumbers, sir. My plumber doesn't.
You're talking about possibly less than 1%. I heard one of the councilmen last week say every plumber he's asked has not objected to utilizing the uniform codes.
One moment, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Felshaw has been patiently waiting. Councilmember Felshaw.
Yes,
Perhaps you can help me with this. Do you know the age of UPC?
1926.
And did I understand correctly that only 3% of cities are using this at this time?
6.5 million people are under the population of that.
Okay, there's 330 million people in America.
No, we're talking about Texas.
Okay.
He alluded that 15 million Texans were using it, and 6.5 on the
Okay.
IPC, 6.5 under the UPC. That's still, in my book, that's 21.5. Last time I checked, that was 28, 29, and that's still 8 or 9 million unaccounted for.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm just curious, and I'm not a plumber.
No,
I'll be
I
honest with
understand.
you. I have no loyalty to either one of these
Yes, sir.
codes. My only loyalty is to the people of Beaumont, and just wanted to make sure we do what's
Exactly.
best for them. Outside of that, I have no loyalty.
I understand, Councilman.
I'm just trying to assimilate all this information. But what I was wondering if the age of UPC and why if that's true, only 3% of the cities have embraced it.
Sure.
If it's so great, why hasn't it overtaken IPC?
Well, a lot of politics involved. A lot of politics, especially at the city level. Just like Mr. Boone has alluded, we will go to the building official, and we have in years past. And a lot of times it's a great code, but as soon as we're out of there, our card gets thrown in the trash and everything. The city concept, the way the city structure is, you have a building official, then you have your plumbing department, most of them. I'm not saying that Beaumont is set up like that. You'll have a chief plumbing inspector, chief mechanical, similar to a job site. You have a general contractor, then you got a plumbing mechanical sub, electrician sub. Those in the city structure, those chief plumbing mechanical inspectors, if you go to all of them in Texas, I guarantee you the majority, at least 90% of them will tell you, we prefer the uniform set of codes. But we have a boss that prefers the international family of codes. With that, I'll say this. If they're the family of codes, who does the electrical? I can tell you, it isn't IATMO and it isn't ICC. It's NFPA, a different code body altogether. We're not going to get in that, but we never hear correlation issues with the electrical code. But, go ahead.
And thank you, sir. And I agree with Councilman Durio that we need to be careful that we don't kick the can down the road, especially when it comes to projects, downtown development, the many projects that we look at as a council. We need to be decisive, and we need to be very intentional and move forward for the sake of our citizens. But I'm just wondering, I don't know if Chris or maybe someone on council can answer this question. I do sense that there's a timeline, a pressure point here to get this done today. I'm just wondering, why is that? Is something going to happen if we don't decide this today and wait until we get all this information? What's the pressure to do this right now, that sense of urgency? Is there something I'm not seeing?
There's no hard and fast deadline. I will say, though, that we, the city, we get audited periodically by the ISO. And they come in and they'll say, what code are you under? And they'll come in and they'll say, I need to see all your training records for all your inspectors. I need to see what your educational attainment is for your plan reviewers. What is their experience? So they do an audit of us, and they give us an ISO ranking. And so that eventually, when ISO comes in, they usually give you ample amount of time to say, look, we're coming in July or we're coming in October. So there is, we really do need to get this done.
Do we know when they're coming?
We don't. But like I said, they usually give you 30 days notice or a little bit more. And so once we get that letter, we know they're coming. So so as of now, they've not declared that they're coming. Okay. So to answer your question, there is a deadline eventually, but there's not a hard and fast deadline.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
on that issue, the requirement for the ISO rating is you are either under the current set of codes to obtain your rating, which right now is the 2021, or the preceding code, which would be the 2018. Right now, the city of Beaumont's on the 2015.
Mayor Pro Tem Durio.
Keep hearing about the Houston doing their study and they're trying to figure out their codes. I just want to know, in your opinion, would it be fair to compare, as far as that goes, compare a city the size of Houston with their resources to Beaumont?
Not in resource-wise, no, sir,
I
because
mean, even this whole thing, I mean, waiting for them and letting them do their study and all that, and they keep talking about Houston. I mean, it's just, it's not even apples to oranges, it's apples to raisins, you know?
you said that, Councilman, I didn't. But I will say this, IATMO's here to offer the resources and help support city staff in any way we need with, just like the amendments like we sent to Mr. Meyer. The amendments were done. Austin is a very progressive city. They actually adopted the 21 code in 21. So they pretty much have done all the legwork. Now, I'm not going to say the same climate and actions that soil that you have in Austin, because the hill country is the same as in Beaumont. I understand that. But a lot of the legwork has been done, and that's what we discussed last year in April to help facilitate this and push this along. It's a code that the plumbing and mechanical industry want. It's a code that's best suited for the citizens of Beaumont, and I think it's something that we really need to move forward with.
When you say amendments, is each city able to make amendments to the UPC,
Yes,
particular to their city?
Yes, sir. The codes, it doesn't matter if it's the international codes or uniform codes. They're baseline codes. That's all they are. Now, each city can go above. You never want to go below the code. You want to usually go either just what the code says or go above it. Now, the limiting of the amendment is what you really want. Now, you're going to hear, just like you said, the correlation. It doesn't correlate. Our code doesn't correlate. It's been correlating in Houston pretty good for 40 years, you know. And it's also in Austin since the 1970s. So all of those claims, we constantly hear it between myself and Mr. Anderson. We've known each other for a number of years, and we can go back and forth. He was working under it as a UPC, but now he's on the other side, and that's fine. But as far as the correlation and seamless, you know, I stated some of the other states around the country. And to answer your question, Mr. Falchel, it's over 100 million people that are on the UPC out of 300. So you're talking about over 30% of the population in the United States.
Mr. Mata,
Yes, sir.
there's been some talk of the Home Builders Association, but then comments were made that it would not affect.
No, ma'am. The International Residential Code back in the legislature of 2001 passed a bill requiring the minimum standards for residential construction be done under the International Residential Code. And as I stated in the past and before, we are not here to, we don't have any beef with the home builders. This is not going to do anything to their code. They're still going to keep the residential code. We're talking about getting the uniform plumbing, uniform mechanical. You have that for commercial applications, you know, but we do have residential provisions in there. And I'll say this, the city of Austin adopts the International Residential Code, but they replace the plumbing provisions of the IRC, the International Residential Code, with the UPC. Because in their mind, all the plumbers are doing it just like you heard plumbers in the past and the ones that Councilman Neal polled. They're all doing it now under the Uniform Plumbing Code in Beaumont. So why not adopt it?
So it will not affect
No.
the Home Builders
No, ma'am.
Association?
I'm sorry. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Councilmember Turner.
Not a question for you. Just my last thing, you know, just a statement to our city manager and just with staff, because I know we bring up the word urgency and are we in a rush and things of this magnitude. I kind of think as a leader and as a business, if you don't set a timeline, a goal, and try to stay within your timeline and your goals, it'll kind of always be on the shelf. So I don't look at it as urgency from a leadership standpoint. I look at it as structure. And like I said, since I've been on the council, we've asked for things such as salary studies that hasn't been produced. We asked for things such as a strategic plan, which hasn't been in existence. We were told it was a capital plan. These are all things that I've been dealing with since I've been on the council. So for me, it's not a sense of urgency. It's just a sense of structure and accountability and timeline and goals. And right now, at the rate, as you can see from this conversation, we don't have that structure in place. So I urge you, based upon what you heard and what we discussed today, that we kind of get some accountability, timelines, goals, and structures together. Because it's not urgency for me. It's just making sure we stay on path and we stay on consistent in improving our city and making things better.
Okay, making sure that was a question. Let me be clear before I say anything first. I'm not advocating for any code. I'm only advocating what's best for Beaumont, Texas. So let's be clear on that before I say anything. But what you've just mentioned are things that we can control. I mean, we can control that. I can't, as I said, I can't control what happened before, but what goes forward at this point, from this point, I can. And if this council chooses to want to have an objective view at this situation, I can provide that objective view. And I can give you a timeline to have that objective view if that's what you want to do. And it's not easy to do. You know, if we have to provide more resources to do it within that timeline, we can do it. You know, there are people you can hire to come in and do these things. They can do the review for you if staff gets overloaded or whatever it may be. But yeah, we could do it. I know Boyd had his timeline, but I'm thinking we could get something done in 6 or 7 weeks for you to vote on, if that's what you're saying. I think a couple of weeks for staff review, a week for legal, then a couple of weeks for stakeholder meetings with the people in the crowd, with the plumbers, et cetera. Then another week council workshop, then another week for council to vote on who you want to go with. And that's basically would be about the second week in March. Now that's if you're just talking about the plumbing code. Now I think there's a mix up here about all the codes sometimes, and then, but I think I heard that coming from out there. But we're just talking about the plumbing code. I think the plumbing code only can fit within that time frame. If you're looking at all of your codes, it would probably expand. Does that help, sir?
Yes, that helps me tremendously. It's kind of to the level that I was speaking to, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mata.
Thank you.
Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, when are we expecting to update the rest of the codes? When were we originally planning on updating them?
I think Boyd has said that they've been working on them. I'll say this too. It's common for a city not to operate with the latest code. Okay, usually about one code cycle behind for a city to operate. If it's 2023, we should be around 2021 or something like that. Nobody wants the latest codes because the latest code has bugs in it, and let somebody else get the bugs worked out of it before you do. So our city typically operates. So, I mean, we could put in action, put in motion to start to work on updating all the codes. It probably would take about that timeline Boyd initially mentioned to do all of them. So that's something we could put in motion.
How many cycles did you say we're behind right now?
So we're under the 2015. So as Mr. Meyer mentioned, we looked at the 2018. We heard of some issues. We wanted to wait for the 2021, and so that's where we are. So roughly 2 if you're looking at a 3-year cycle.
So how much longer will it be before we're trying to vote on 2021? Do they come out every 2 years? Is it getting ready to be a 2023 code?
Well, again, if a new edition comes out, we don't want to jump on the new edition. We want to wait for the one that's kind of percolated through and with identified issues. So
what I'm saying is, if one is getting ready to come out 2023, that's going to put us like 8 years behind, right?
Well, we would adopt the newest one we could. We wouldn't just go to 17, 19. We would go to the 2021 if that's the case.
So it's what you're saying is normal to be behind as
Yes.
far as on the code.
yes.
Any other discussion? Any other comments? Okay, I'm gonna close the work session, and I'm gonna ask Mr. City Manager, will you please give us a reading of item number 9, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Let me get to that page. Council, consider an ordinance adopting the 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code. Based upon the discussion you've had, consider for adopting 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 9, and I would like to make the motion for approval of item number 9. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Neal.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this until after the staff report.
Second.
Well, we have a motion. I have a motion and a second on the
Per
floor.
the rules of the meeting, the latest motion needs to be dealt with first.
Yes,
Can we have discussion?
sure. I ask for discussion. Councilmember Turner.
So this is, once again, for clarity, we're talking plumbing codes only. And you're saying that we can have something back from you within 7 weeks as far as an action item for us to actually vote on it with facts, detailed facts and comparisons.
Yes, and if I'm saying something that's out of line, staff, you can't deliver, tell me now.
Yes, sir. I think there's plenty of attention, so I feel like we can get those groups together. So short answer is yes.
Yes.
So to the mayor, like, you know, how do you feel based upon what we already dealt with? How do you feel with that timeline? Would that be sufficient for you, or what are your thoughts?
What I feel about the timeline is that, again, we have kicked the can down the street. It almost sounds like in the debate that my dad can beat your dad. My dad is stronger than your dad. It's a lot of back and forth. And I will say that I was elected to advocate for the citizens of Beaumont. We've heard plumbers come last week and speak to the effect that they've raised their families here. They've gone to school here, raised their families here, their businesses are here. They took off from work last week to come and speak on behalf of their businesses, their clients that they service here in this city, and that they are for the UPC code. Councilmember Neal, who has stated that he's a part of several entities of the plumbing codes, businesses in this city, and he even stated the fact that he asked several plumbers how did they feel about the UPC code, and they were in favor of it. They did not object to it. So if there's not an objection from the residents that we are here to represent, the residents of this city, not Colorado, not Louisiana, but the citizens of Beaumont who service each and every one of us in this city, who support the city, who tax dollars are based in this city, then why are we kicking the can down the road? And I will stand on that. Yes, sir, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. And all the comments you just said that I said last week are true. In fact, they're 100% correct. But there's a couple of answers that we could not get answered today, like a pretty big one from my standpoint of what does this do to us with all of our FEMA agreements? You know, another one that, you know, I have a big problem with is we didn't even give the common courtesy to pick up the phone and call the AGC or the ABC or any of the other stakeholders in this community and tell them what we're about to do. This, regardless of what either side just told you, this is going to impact somebody somehow. And I think that we owe it to them to sit down and talk with them. I think
Mr.
it's only
Neal?
the right thing to do.
Thank you for your comments, but every decision we make impacts someone every day. As Mayor Pro Tem Durio say, it's not gonna always be easy, but we were elected to make some hard decisions. And not every decision will be easy. But I will also say that in the statements that were given, the statements were, neither side had a true clarification of FEMA. They both said that we would be reimbursed. One said we would be reimbursed with an engineer opinion. One said that we would be reimbursed across the board. And so, again, we're going back and forth. We as a council have gone back and forth on some issues. And at some point, with all of the construction that is going on in this city, Mr. Boone at a neighborhood association last week said we have had the largest permits approved in the history of this city in the last year. And with us moving at that pace, I don't want anything to stop us. I don't want anything to stop the progress of this city. This will not cost the city anything. The training, they're doing plumbing work every day. Every day of their lives, they do this plumbing work. And I would almost say, can't guarantee it, but I would almost say that if you are a master plumber and you're doing plumbing work every day, I don't think this code is going to change or affect the way the plumbing is done on a daily basis. And we've gone from rushing it to almost 2 years of it being discussed. It's not affecting the home builders. We've had someone from Colorado, Louisiana, Austin, and you say they didn't have time. Every agenda is posted on Friday afternoon. They could have attended last Tuesday. It was posted. It's public knowledge by law that it's posted. It was posted this Friday, but it's amazing after last Tuesday's meeting, then there were a lot of phone calls that rushed in to contradict what happened last Tuesday. And before last Tuesday, it wasn't a lot said about it. And so just when we get to the threshold of going through to make a final decision, then we get a lot of pushback. And then when you get pushback, you don't want to make a decision. And so the vote is on the floor, and I say to each council member, you vote how you feel will best suit the residents of Beaumont and this community. Councilmember Felshaw.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with the mayor that we've heard both sides. One says FEMA will support it, the other side says FEMA doesn't. So I guess this is a question to the city manager, to Chris. I'm assuming we feel confident that we can bypass all these people and go directly to FEMA and get the answer directly from them and get a better understanding of the FEMA issue. I'm assuming that's true.
Are you asking if we can ask FEMA the question?
Well, I'm assuming that is true, that our staff can research this out with FEMA to get exactly the position and bring it back to us.
I can help address this.
Yeah.
So I've been working with FEMA since 2005, starting with Rita. Worked all the way through Ike, Imelda, Laura, Marco, Gustav. I mean, you name it. We've done it all. We're still working with FEMA on Harvey. We have weekly phone calls with them. We've had weekly phone calls with them for years now. I don't think this has ever even come up in a conversation with FEMA, which code we're using. We've not been denied any claims by FEMA because of a code, but on the flip side, I don't think we've had any claims of facilities that involve plumbing. So, but we do have a weekly call with them every Monday, and we can reach out next Monday and get that answer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. I appreciate that information. Mayor Pro Tem Duria.
One thing I hope doesn't happen again, I'm still not happy that this was presented to council by staff, and it seemed like all the work was not done. It shouldn't have been presented to us like this. All of this, they gave us this flow chart, and they skipped 5 steps and gave it to us to vote on. And that's not, I'm surprised the first time, especially when you present something to us and recommend for approval, and then when we discuss it, you recommend not approving it. I don't get that. Another thing, whatever decision we make, every decision we make up here, somebody not gonna like it. Somebody gonna be mad, somebody gonna be happy. That's just how it is. You have to have, one thing I learned about being on council, you have to have thick skin. You do. Hopefully, one thing I do like about our council, we do disagree, but we move on. We're still friends. Councilman Neal and me, we'll still talk, even though he don't like the Cowboys. And we'll move on to but I say that to say, we may disagree, we may not vote the same, but we'll vote our vote, because the vote belongs to us, because our constituents elected us to make those vote. And we'll vote the way we think is best for the citizens of Beaumont and our constituents, and then we'll move on to the next issue. Also, I thought that Mr. Mata had gave us the latest answer that he got from FEMA. He said he got that answer in September, that we will get refunded. If it's a plumbing issue that the code doesn't matter, we'll get it. So, and I'm now, one thing I don't like about the council, we do tend to kick stuff down the road. When it comes down to making a decision, we hold up. But most of the time, that's if we have to spend a lot of money. We don't have to spend no money on this deal here. And the training, that's good. That's a good deal. I mean, you should always be up to snuff. You should be current on your training as far as plumbing and plumbing codes and all those things. You should be current on that. So that's not a bad deal, even if we have to pay for our employees to be trained up to the current code. That's a good deal. So that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Samuel.
When I started out, I said, I wanted to make my decision based on facts, not on emotions or perceptions. I don't want, the only thing that I've received today that's different from last week is, as I understand it, FEMA will, under a consensus-based standard, approve those things if they're under the IPC. And if it's not under, and those things are not under IPC, then there has to be an analysis, engineering analysis. But I also heard Utah say that is dealing with other issues coming to FEMA. That is not dealing with plumbing, and you're not sure as to whether that would be the same thing in dealing with those things that are under the plumbing code. Is that correct?
Right, and remember, we file under public assistance, like one of the gentlemen talked about. I don't know how that affects individual assistants, though, if they need to follow a certain code. But like I said, we do have those calls every Monday. We'll ask that specific question and confirm it.
Okay, so with that, I want to make sure that whatever objective information that I'm making my decision on, I want to make sure it is correct objective information. And I don't like kicking down the road. I don't want to kick this down the road. But I don't want to make a decision just based on what I feel. I don't want to vote against it because right now I feel comfortable about moving forward with the UPC, but I don't see the urgency that 1 week will make a difference. And that's only to find out if that is gonna be, is this engineering analysis gonna be applicable to other things other than the, would it cover the plumbing code, if there's something that falls for reimbursement under that code? If that's my primary question. Now, I guess my last question would be is, if we were to move forward and this council did say, okay, we're adopting the uniform plumbing code, and next week or 2 weeks from now, we get information, substantive information, that tells me it's a bad decision, what would be the detriment of then coming back and say, well, maybe we need to take this vote again? Mr. Manager or Todd or City Attorney?
Somebody.
You could always readopt it or amend it.
So yeah, you have the motion on the floor to table. He didn't give a definite time to table, but obviously, anytime you table the motion, you have to table it for a definite period of time or a certain period of time. The manager has requested 7 weeks. I hear you ask for 1 week just for clarification for FEMA, but obviously, I can tell you that we post on Friday, so if the call is on Monday, there could be additional questions that come from that require FEMA follow-up. So, I mean.
So there is a motion on the floor to table this for.
There's 2 motions on the floor, but the rules require that you address the motion to table. The last motion first was just the motion to table.
Right, there are two motions on the floor. And the primary motion, the one to be dealt with first, is the motion to table.
Correct.
And that would be to table the motion that was put on the floor by the mayor. And I just.
No, it would be to table the item, not to table her motion. To
The item,
the
yes,
item.
ma'am, that's what that was
I
what I
got
was
you.
alluding to.
But we got to be clear for the record and for the public.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Mayor, my question is, would a 1 week period be allowable to you? 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks?
So see, just in that breath, it's gone from 1 week to 2 weeks.
Well.
So,
Mayor.
Mr. Seminole, one moment. Mr. Seminole, you said you talk to FEMA on a weekly basis. So do you feel you would have the answer to our question in 1 week?
I do. Those calls that we have with FEMA include representatives with FEMA and Texas Department of Emergency Management. So if they can't give that answer over the phone Monday, I don't know why they wouldn't be able to do it, but I would assume they'd be able to answer that.
I don't want a verbal answer. I want it in black and white so that we don't have to go back and forth
And they could
to
probably
question what was
yeah,
said.
They could give us the same printed public assistance guide that this gentleman was quoting earlier. If that's
I'm gonna be honest with you, as long as we've been discussing this, we probably could have called Austin and FEMA and gotten that answer already. I'm not even inclined to recess and so that we could do that. It's 4:24. Councilmember Getz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is easy. The manager has already given us a timeline. It's not just the FEMA question. It's also going through the process that we always go through that hasn't been adhered to yet, in bringing in comments from the Association of General Contractors, the Home Builders Association, technical changes to trades. But the manager has said 7 weeks, we can have all of the objective information that we need to make a decision, just like Councilmember Samuel has said that he's struggling with because we don't have objective information. I am in the same position. In 7 weeks, we can have that, and we can revisit this in 7 weeks. And I don't know if you put 7 weeks in your motion to table, but that's what I thought I was seconding. Again, there's a motion to table on the floor. Councilmember Neal, will you clarify for 7 weeks?
One moment. One thing I want to state, you said the Home Builders Association and general contractors, the UPC code isn't affecting the Home Builders Association and the general contractors, correct?
Can somebody clarify that for me? Because say a homeowner.
I asked that question.
Okay, but what about developers that are doing residential neighborhoods? How is this? There's storm drainage tied into this, and there's other things, main water lines, fire water lines, other things that the developers for these home additions are going to have to incur. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot more to it than what both sides are telling us. That's what we need this other 7 weeks for.
And Mayor, also with regard to that,
That's all come up.
when I
Hold on, one moment.
I just want to say anecdotally, when my plumber was out at my office, which was built in the 19 teens and had to discovered lead water or sewer lines underneath, and he wants to replumb with PVC and everything, these are the technical aspects or things that we need under column 3, the technical changes to the trades. That needs to be evaluated. So anyway.
I'm going to explain to council that during a work session, you can have comments from other parties, but doing an action item, the time for public comment was before. So we're now on the actual item itself. And so outside of hearing from staff possibly, it's inappropriate to hear from the public on an item that is already, when the work session has already been closed.
Thank you.
Staff.
Okay. The International Residential Code is strictly for 1 and 2 family dwellings. But there are provisions also where it correlates over to the IPC. And there's a lot of things that are interlinked together. And again, that can be explained more to get the technical information that you're asking for. Real quick, back to our sheet, which was talked about a lot. This was just the benefits that we put down, not to get into the technical battle that's going on between International Code Council and IATMO. These are just some things that that we were putting down for staff, and then also the adoption process. That adoption process, this here is what we have usually done. Our staff has not come before council. It was not our staff. A week ago Tuesday, it was not our staff that put it on the agenda. We have not put our complete package to come before council with a package to adopt all of the codes, which we've done every time, not just the plumbing code or the mechanical code or the fire code. We try to finish everything and come one time and do everything at one time. So to say that we came and we weren't prepared, you're correct, because we did not do this. We did not come before and get on the agenda to adopt or to discuss or have a work session on all of the I codes. So I just want to clarify that on that part. But as far as on the residential code, it is a process we go through because it's all together with all of the codes. When we go talk to the home builders, AGC, and everybody, yes, we'll discuss the IBC more with AGC and then with the home, but it's just the process that we go through to make sure that we get to all entities, all stakeholders involved here that we would want to go back to. If there's any changes, anything that we're going to change on the amendments or any other significant changes, we just want to get it out there to everybody. And that's why we put this here, that we would actually go back and we would get to everybody, because I think that y'all would like to know everything that's going on, whether it be the adoption of the codes or Riverfront Park or whatever it might be. If there's a change, there's an amendment, there's anything you would want to know, and you'd have to sometimes have to discuss it again. So we just wanted to show you our process, but it was not a full recommendation on this, because this is just the benefits that staff would see itself and not the technical side of it.
And
So
boy,
Bart,
go ahead.
what you're saying is, this is routine of what you would present to the council to make sure that we are aware that everyone listed here is aware of what's going on.
Yes,
Not that you were not prepared, correct?
Yeah, once we're prepared, this is what we go through.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Mayor.
Councilmember Getz.
So what I'm hearing from you is that the International Family of Codes intermeshes so that they correlate to each other. But if you take the plumbing code out and substitute the Uniform Plumbing Code, they might not intermesh in the same way that it would if it was to stay under the International Family of Codes. Am I hearing that correct?
Correct.
So that is going to require a little bit more technical analysis from your department, and you can't do that in 1 week, can you? Or can you?
Well, it really depends on the extent of it. Again, the Austin amendments that were sent to us, that I'll have to get with Mr. Boone, and we'll have to look at those amendments and see how that's actually, how they did it. Those are things, that's some of the time of part of the things we're talking about that we need to take a look at.
Earlier today, you said, I think, several months. The manager gave you a more condensed schedule of 7 weeks. Is 7 weeks something you think you can make some headway on into these technical analysis that needs to be performed?
Yeah, we'll have to try to make it happen. We'll do the best we can.
Mayor Pro Tem Duria.
Keep saying 1 week. Realistically, that's not possible. You're probably gonna get, if you say 1 week for next council meeting, you're really gonna get 2 days, like Wednesday and Thursday, and then it has to be posted on the agenda for Friday. So.
Well, I think the 1 week was talked about for FEMA, an answer for FEMA, not everything else.
Do you-
The total.
FEMA, you say you speak to them every Monday, Todd. Is it possible for you to call them tomorrow?
Actually, I was talking to a staff. They were trying to call them now, but they're not answering.
No, okay.
Good
Good work.
Working on it.
We got voicemail.
Thank you, Todd. Councilmember Felshaw.
I would encourage the council to call for the question, and let us vote on the motion that's on the floor to table until our city manager and staff have an opportunity to research this further and come back to us and give us a thorough report. Our city manager asked for 7 weeks. I call for the question.
And I have a question, Mayor. The original motion, I didn't hear either council member say a timeline.
I will amend my motion for 7 weeks.
And I'll second that motion to table for 7 weeks. And the question's been called.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of approving to table the motion for 7 weeks, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
No. No.
No.
So I'm going to go back to the motion. All in favor of approving? All in favor of approving item number 9?
But
What point of order? Didn't the motion to table just pass?
no, it failed.
That was 43.
It was 4-3.
Okay.
So I would like to amend the original motion and make a motion for 2 weeks to get the confirmation for FEMA, and see if I can get a second on that.
Okay.
You
there's
can't
a-
amend a motion that has already passed and or failed.
Okay.
So you can only make
can't
a
amend
new.
He can remove his
You gotta
motion.
make a new
So
motion.
you have to make a new motion.
He made a new motion.
He's made a new motion for a 2-week delay or table.
Okay, have a motion and a second on the floor to table for 2 weeks. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose. The motion carries. To table for 2 weeks.
It's not over.
Okay. Now it's the time for any citizen that would like to make public comment. If you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip to the back of the room, hand it to the clerk to the front of the room. She will call your name when it's time for you to speak.
I'm sorry, Charlie Crabb, 928 East Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
Hello, Mayor, Council. That was the best discussion. I wished I'd have come prepared to join in. Okay, this afternoon, I'd like to mention that on that past discussion, I would like to just inject that if it's not broken, don't fix it. Because I didn't hear anything about safety mentioned, and I've been involved in plumbing on rent houses for 40 years, and there's been a lot of changes for safety. And the code probably introduced that, the safety part. And anyway, let's move on to the one of the really major subjects now is our school district. As you know, they've released the scores, and we did not do well. And I noticed the city council voted just to meet with the school district twice a year. And I think we need to meet with them once a month to help them plan on how to improve our school scores. And we need to work with, bring in Lamar Education Department and say, can you provide tutors for these classrooms? And, but anyway, they really need help in that direction, and education is the key for the city partially to grow. And last week, I mentioned something about the buses, and I don't know if Mayor Mouton challenged me to ride the bus, but by golly, I went and rode the bus.
I owe you.
Yes, and let me move on down the road, down my report here now. Okay, I went on the refinery bus on Wednesday, and the when we got back to the Dunn station, they changed the name to Magnolia, so I got on the Magnolia bus, and that was my bus when I was a kid. And so then I came back on Thursday and rode the South 11th Street bus. Now that's an interesting bus because it tours the south end quite a bit and ends up out at, they called it Tinseltown, but anyway, it was out there at Walden Road. And there was workers that rode that bus, and oh my God, but anyway, I had a good report here on the buses, and it was enjoyable.
Well, look, I have your.
No, I
told you I would pay for you to ride the bus.
I'm a professed independently wealthy person, and I've joined that association. And if I accept any reimbursement, I'll be booted out of that fictional association.
Well, I don't want to boot you out then.
No. See, I've been planning on this for years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
William Shackelford, 385 Manning Street, Beaumont, Texas.
Thank you. Mayor and Councilor, I'm kind of new in the neighborhood, so this is my first meeting. What I'm here for today is I've been here since April, so I've kind of been getting things together, and I've been wanting to attend one of these meetings, so thank you for that I got the opportunity to do so. I'm concerned about Manning Street. That's the street that I live on. I built a new home there, and it's a lot of shotgun houses there, and there's a lot of wildlife live in these houses. These houses should be torn down. I know at some point in time they will be torn down, but it looks like it's kind of taking a toll on our community. I'm a type person that I work in my community. I do a lot of things in the community that goes unnoticed, and I'm not looking for any kind of repercussion. In other words, no payback or anything like that. These are just things that I do on a normal basis. And when I say work in the neighborhood, I go around the block picking up paper and doing these sorts of things. Right now, you know, we have a dumping problem. It's not as bad as it used to be. It has gotten better. And so that I have asked some of the code enforcers that ride around in the cars to actually put up some no dumping signs. People think they don't work, but they do. I done been in neighborhoods where they do work. Everyone is not going to pay attention to it, but if you get 1 or 2 people out of 5 to pay attention to it, that may draw attention to the others. And so I would like for that to be done, and also something to be done definitely about these shotgun houses. Manning Street is a street that's been redone over the years because I think they came in there years ago and did some sewer work or some type of drainage work. So it's one of the best streets in the neighborhood. And the community uses this street to travel up and down every day. Kids ride their bicycle up and down the street because it's a better street. And so, but it's an eyesore. And I just wish someone would pay attention to that. I don't know who the council on board to take care of that, but you will hear from me in the past, or I will be talking with you and getting to know you a lot better. And I just hope that I know it's a flood area, a flood zone, but it's a community where a lot of people come back to visit with me, and I'm not even from this area. I moved here from Houston, but I'm originally from Alabama. And so, but I made this my retirement.
Go ahead, finish your statement.
I made this my retirement city. And so that I just stop right there and give someone else an opportunity.
Well, I will say welcome to Beaumont, and thank you for your patience today, of all meetings for you to come to. This was a very intense meeting today, a lot of dialogue, but I think you see our hearts are in what we do. And of course, Councilmember Samuel, I'm sure you will be conversing with him.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tony Lagon Carrier, 4240 Inez Street, Beaumont, Texas.
May I ask council for a cup
Could
of
you?
water?
We can't hear you.
May I ask council for a cup of water, please?
Can you?
First, I want to say good afternoon to everyone. I just got back from California because I lost my best friend, passed away, and I've been going through a lot of emotional things because before that, thank you so much. Thank you, and please excuse me. before I had left and went to my friend's funeral, which was last week, I just got back Sunday. Prior to that, I was at one of our meetings with Parks and Recreation. I'm on the committee, and I'm very emotional right now, and I know it's a lot to do with losing my friend, you know. A lot of things have conspired, you know. So I'm going to ask everybody here, including the citizens of Beaumont, to please forgive me for being so sad. I'm sad right now, but I'm a little angry too. I'm glad that he spoke and made me laugh, you know, because I needed to laugh a little bit. But I'm very upset with one of the council members, and I really, from Ward 2, I'm not going to say his name because, and he knows why, because I believe that I deserve, just like in the words of Sojourner Truth, ain't I a woman? Am I a woman? You know, and I consider myself a lady. You know, I am a woman. You know, this is true, but I am a lady. You know, I was totally disrespected, and at the meeting because I'm one of the members. I was asked to. I was speaking with the CEO of. I don't know his name. Neil is one, but the CEO and I were speaking when council member from Ward 2 walked up and was listening to us talk. And when first of all, let me back up. We were supposed to go around and see how the parks look because they have funds that they want to distribute out to see which park needs what. And I'm not from this area either. So when I said, well, I thought that we were going to get together and have, you know, on a bus, and we all go see these various parks to see what needs what, you know. And I'm kind of nervous right now because I'm upset, and I'm upset. And so Ward 2 walks up while we were talking, me and the CEO, because I needed a time limit, because he said they want us to fill out which parks that we think that needed what kind of work, what money should go where. And so I'm sorry, I know I'm out of time, but I just got to get this out. She probably will arrest me after this, but I mean, I just got to get this out.
I'll let you go ahead and finish your statement.
He walked up, and I refused to say his name. He walked up, and when I said, well, you know what, can we get a time limit, because there's only 7 members here, people here that are, that wrote down their, the parks that they wanted us to pick to see what we need. And I said Terrell Park, because I don't know all the parks. And he suggested, Ward 2, why don't you just drive around to the parks? And I go, you have a car? I go, yes. Well, why don't you drive around? I said, me go to different various parks, a woman by myself, and see, I don't even know the parks, you know, where to go, because we had decided that we were all gonna, I thought it was decided that we'd take a bus ride, us all together, and care, you know. And so when I said no, I do have a car, but I'm not gonna use my money and ride around at various parks to see. Anyway, long story short, I said, well, can we get a time limit on when we can get this back on which parks was chosen, so we can get back to council on where the monies will go, because they said they got this monies and they want to know. And he said, well, we'll have to, we don't know. I said, well, it's not that many of us. How long will it take? You know? So he walks up, and I said, well, you know what? I'll go to city council. I come in sometime. And I said his name. And he said, loud. And I didn't have a voice because I just got back in town from Atlanta because my daughter had surgery, so I was sick. So he said, when I said his name, I said, well, he knows me. I'll come to council. He said, you're disrespecting me. Call me and I called his last name because I refer to Mayor Mouton as Mouton. I call Alderman Samuels Alderman or Samuels because he's got 2 last names to me. And I call everybody, I call Durio because he's in Ward 4. So I meant no disrespect, but he took me off guard. And for me, being born when I was born, you know, I'm a baby boomer. It's almost like call me master, you know. That really disturbed me because I'm a woman. And when I said, wait a minute, you don't talk to me like that. You talk to my husband, meaning a man. He said, go get your husband. Now, wait a minute. Wait, I'm sorry, I got to go here. First of all, for me, it's like, you want me to go get my husband, which I didn't mean it like that. I was saying you talk to a man like that, not a woman, the way he talked to me. And I was very upset because men were there that could have stopped him, which I was standing there with this man, you know, the way he talked to me.
Stop
The way he talked to me was so upset.
Mayor, point of order.
I was so
No, point of
upset,
order.
you know.
This is totally inappropriate, and it
No,
is
what was
not
totally
within-
inappropriate when you told
Hold
us,
on, one moment.
when you told the city
One
lawyer
moment.
to suck your penis, that was totally
Oh,
inappropriate.
one moment.
Okay.
One moment.
So we've exhausted the 3 minutes.
Yes.
We're way
Yeah.
past her statement of time. I think that we've gotten out of order for council.
And I apologize. Let me apologize, sweetheart. Let me apologize to this total council, because everybody know that I don't talk like this. And I am very sorry, but I've been very upset, so I need to get that off my chest, and I really apologize. And if you don't ever want me to come back here, I won't, you know, but I just wanted to apologize.
Thank you.
Okay.
Look, you're leaving your inhalers in your water.
And I apologize again.
Thank you.
To the whole council. Okay, baby.
Sam Marchand, 640 Kennedy, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Just after the meeting, I now have a new profound respect for the plumbers and the pipes that make the world go round. I didn't think that we could sit here for an hour and hear so much informative discussion about the way the pipes work, and I want to thank the plumbers in the audience for that. That was extremely informative. I'm here to update you on the activities of the Beaumont Youth Advisory Council. We've had a very productive series of meetings, and we are extremely grateful for your support. Our operations would be impossible without the generous time and support of Mr. Miles Haynes in the back and Councilman Turner. We're very grateful. We voted so far to approve a group of us to attend the Texas Municipal League's Youth Advisory Summit in Dallas next weekend. They got a group going. The Youth Council is planning both a City Beautification Day trash pickup and a scholarship fair in the near future. We discussed ways that youth can help abate the homelessness problem, and we'll hear from a representative of the police department at our next meeting. We also voted for our meetings to be live streamed on the internet. On behalf of the Youth Advisory Council, I'd like to thank those of you who attended our last meeting. Of course, members of the public are more than welcome to attend our next session or watch from home on February 9th. Again, I wish to reiterate our profound gratitude for your support, and I thank you for my time.
Mr. Marchand, thank you so very much. I enjoyed the meeting on last week. Great dialogue, great topic issues, a lot of input, and I just love the involvement of the youth. We look forward to hearing from you at your next meeting.
Yes, ma'am. February 9th.
Thank you.
Everyone is welcome to attend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Addie Allen, 9695 Gross, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, Mr. City Manager, Madam Mayor, and Council, and respected
Could you raise up your
officials.
mic, please?
Can
We
you
could
hear
barely
me?
hear you. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I stand before you with some concerns, as I do whenever I'm here. Number one, last week, I left here and almost was blown down by the wind. And as you know, I've stood before you several times asking whether we could have an audible sound, a siren, in the event of an occurrence. The last mayor, we talked about stand, telephones, of course, evacuation. But the number one thing in an evacuation plan is an audible sound to let people know. I'm from Orange. You probably all saw the people that jumped in a ditch to save themselves. I was told that this is expensive. Now, when we talk about the bond ratings, when we talk about increasing the budget, that's for the good. It's also good for the people of Beaumont to know. I left here stopping at Rayo's because I wanted a cookie. They were closed, but you were still here in council. And I did review council where there was a sound and everybody still was sitting here. That's unacceptable. You know, good thing the Lord spared us, that no lives were lost. So I'm asking you again, let's look at getting a sound if there is imminent danger of a tornado. We're not used to that, but we need to do it. Your management team emergency management should know there was a sound in here and you kept on doing business. That's not right. People were put in harm's way. So bottom line, let's please address this issue. Please do it. Sidewalks, we talked about that, you talked about it. If you don't get funding, the ordinance does say the city is responsible. Strategic planning, if we don't get the money, are we not going to do the sidewalks? Last thing is I made a statement about self-insured versus insured. The notes say that I said underinsured. You adopted the minutes incorrectly, so let's pay attention. I'm just a concerned citizen. I love Beaumont. I love Orange more because that's where I'm from, you know, and they really need it as well. So thank you for your time. Have a good day. God bless you. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Ecclesiastes.
Before you leave, I'm going to ask the city attorney to respond to your comment that we stayed during the storm, and there's a reason why.
So the clarification to that is the audible noise that went out was an alert to shelter in place. And so at the time that the alert went out, it was notified to the council and to the members of the public who were here at the time of the meeting that it was recommended that they shelter in place until the storm passed.
I was gone when that happened because I saw that the weather was gone, so it didn't apply to me. So I was subjected to bad weather.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I will call for council member comment, and I will ask Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start off by kind of reiterating what everybody else up here has previously said about ExxonMobil and just saying thank you to you guys for what y'all have continued to do year after year for our area and the true partnership that you guys have formed with Beaumont over the many years. So thank you for that. And then also kind of add to that, say thank you to the council for the open dialogue on the plumbing code changes. I know it was kind of a uncomfortable discussion at times, but it needs to be had, and I kind of just want to say thank you to you guys on having that conversation today.
Thank you. Councilmember Samuel.
I just want to add to that and say thank you, ExxonMobil, for setting an example and creating high standards as partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Felshaw.
Yeah, as most of you know, Beaumont PD arrested a 26-year-old man armed with an assault rifle who was drawing complaints near St. Anthony and the Temple Emmanuel. We don't know what could have happened, and so again, as we've said many times, please, if you see something, please say something. In that situation, a tragedy was diverted, and we appreciate Beaumont PD, and we appreciate the citizens that called those concerns in. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner.
Yeah, I had a question. I got a complaint about in that area, St. Anthony Church. I don't know if we have an ordinance or anything in the place where, you know, it's a stranger, he parks in his car and he kind of sits around that area. The cops go out and address it, but I don't know if we have any ordinance or any policy in place to kind of protect, you know, our churches and our schools in reference to someone being in that area and being reprimanded for sitting there. So if staff can look into it and kind of give me some clarification if we do, I'd appreciate that. The second thing, I want to ask the community for your prayers for our traveling grace. Our youth council, we're making our first trip out of town this upcoming weekend. We're traveling to Dallas, and we're gonna the conference is to educate the kids on how a budget process works. So we're making traveling grace, but while we're talking about ExxonMobil, not only did they take care of Charlton Park, their neighboring park, they also were a sponsor for youth council that actually gave us the funding to make it to this trip that we're going on. So I want to give kudos to Exxon not only for stepping up to take care of us with our park, but they're investing in our youth. And once again, I always stress, I'm a big man of actions over words. My next comment is our senior citizens. I talked to our city attorney about, I'm not a city attorney, our city clerk about this. Our senior citizens are inquiring about mail ballots. Can you kind of speak to that? I got a lot of phone calls. Can kind of explain to them how that works?
Yes, sir. For mail ballots, they can request it at the beginning of the year, and the request will take them through the end of the year for whatever elections we may have within the city of Beaumont, whether it's a city election or if it's a county election. But they do have to request a mail ballot every year, so it doesn't carry from one year to the next. And I think that's been the misunderstanding as far as requesting a mail ballot. So they have to do it every January.
Yes, ma'am. And our city attorney and our city clerk, I want to thank y'all for adding that Sunday in. We did get the email. I want to let y'all know I appreciate y'all listening and making sure that took place. And lastly, we increased our general liability fund by $500,000. And one thing that plays into that is accidents. We had a lot of dialogue about accidents and the process and procedures that will take place to do preventative training to avoid those accidents. So if we had some things taking place, if maybe Mr. Williams can kind of give us an update on what are the new policies and procedures we're doing to kind of prevent that, because at the last thing we want to do is let these funds keep rising. So we kind of want to know what preventative measures are going on. I know at one point I was told we were doing safety trainings, and we got some documentation, but clearly if the accidents are increasing and we're spending more money, we might need to explore the options. So if you can get us an update on it, I highly appreciate that. But outside of that, thank you. And I do like the audible siren. I do think that will be beneficial, especially for our seniors who can't watch television, who may not listen to the radio, who might not be phone savvy. So I don't know the expenses or the magnitude to that, but we have a citizen that's keep asking about that. I think it'd be suitable to see if we can at least address it or get some information on it.
Thank you. Councilmember Getz.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, ExxonMobil, thank you for stepping up. Your generosity to the community and your community support is beyond reproach. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm going to have to respond to the lady that made the comments about an incident that happened at a Park and Recreation Advisory Committee, even though she has decided to leave. We're here in the South, and there is a certain decorum that is supposed to be afforded at meetings, and one of the things that has always irritated me is that somebody calls me by my last name, just Getz. I don't think that's respectful. Mayor, you wouldn't like it if I called, hey, Mouton. That's not respectful. And this particular lady persisted in doing this. She calls AJ, and Councilman Turner was at the meeting. He can back up what I'm saying. And it's not the first time. I told her previously, hey, I would prefer that you call me Mike, call me Councilman Getz, call me Mr. Getz, but just don't call me by my last name. But she persisted. And when she persisted, I called her down for it. I said, I've told you before, don't address me that way. I've given her other options. And she took offense. She said, well, in the military, they call you by last name. I said, we're not in the military. She said, well, I'm from the North. We call people, we're not in the North. So anyway, that's what that incident was all about. And, it's unfortunate that she decided to come here and display her feelings about it in that manner. But, if somebody says something to me that is disrespectful, I'm not going to just sit there and take it. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Durio. Mayor Pro Tem Durio, sorry.
You can call me Councilmember Durio, Mayor Pro Tem Durio, or Durio. I've been going by Durio. Everybody in my family is called Durio. You know, they'd be like, which one you talking about? The short one. Okay, which one you talking about? Because we all short.
Thank you, Chris.
We different, Mike. It doesn't bother me, you know. Also, like everybody else, I want to thank ExxonMobil also, but I also want to thank Chris Jones for his leadership with the Charlton-Pollard Neighborhood Association. And I like the relationship you've established with ExxonMobil, and also I'm pretty sure that Councilman Samuel, that's his ward, pretty sure you had some input on that. And congratulations, ExxonMobil. I think Ward 4 borders some of y'all properties also, so we got some parks and stuff too. So, okay, I sure appreciate that. Also, this past Sunday, people said they were watching football, but to me, no Cowboys equal no football, so I'm gonna keep going. But I was watching, had the game on, and I was getting phone calls and Facebook messages about the flooding and the sewers and all that, and it was the first time I had ever used the 311 app. You can download that 311 app to your phone, and it works very well. You get an email back, and they keep you updated on the process of your call, and it worked good. A matter of fact, I'm still getting emails about some of the stuff that I put in to the 311 app. But I tell everyone, I don't mind them calling me, but call 311. I mean, the more reports, the better, and you'll have a record of that report when you call it in to 311. I think, let me see, what else do I have in here? I got some notes. I think that
Hurry up, Duria.
Thank everyone for your patience. Everybody should feel like they're a plumber now, you know. But it was a lot of good information. It was a lot of good back and forth. Like Councilman Neal said, and I said earlier, we're not going to always vote alike. We all have to vote in what we feel is in the best interests of our constituents. But when it's over, no matter how the vote came on, we'll move on to the next item, you know, without killing each other or even being mad. We just move on to the next item. I think that's it. Of course, I made a lot of phone calls and emails to staff this week about different things going that my constituents called me about, and thank you guys for your prompt response. You guys usually get back to me, and as the manager has told me, I make sure that he's included on everything, and I tell the guys, I say, look, he was out of town. I called you. Please don't snitch on me to the manager that I called you. Well, that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. City Manager.
Can we call you Tom Brady? I think you're Tom Brady again. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you. And again, I'd like to also thank ExxonMobil for what they've done and the work for Nikisha and the dedication she's done to the community and to Charlton-Pollard neighborhood. I look forward to the recycling grant again. I've assigned Miles Haynes to work with Exxon on that grant project, so we are looking for some exciting things coming from that. Is that Andrew? Let's wave at Andrew too, because Andrew's been on that and he's working with that grant. Yeah. So thank you. Councilmember Turner will get you the answer to your comments, or either they'll come back to you in excuse me, in an agenda item for sure. Just one note on the strategic plan. We've executed the contract. They'll be contacting you at some point directly for interviews. They'll be doing direct interviews on the time of February 14th, 17th, and 18th. So they'll schedule with you. The first contact will be with individual meetings with you on what you want to hear, on what you want to see in the city, what you want to do. So you'll be contacted to set that up. Then we'll be coming back with a joint work session with the directors, management, and the council, main council, during the time period of March 6th through the 9th. So things will start escalating pretty quickly. Lyle Sumick, an associate, will do the work, and so they'll work with you remotely, and then they'll come to town and start working with you. So we're excited about that and getting it done. Over the next, it'll be finished before June. We're saying June, could be May, hopefully. And I think that's it, maybe. And I thank those of you who made the HOA meetings. I know Mayor was there and helped defend me in that case. Yeah. And Councilmember Failsafe, Turner, and Samuel was there too. So it was good to see you out there. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Duria.
Hey, two more things. One, on what Councilmember Turner said, and PD might be able to answer this, or Attorney Reed. Isn't there a law that you can't be within so many feet of a school with a firearm? Isn't that a federal law?
Yes, but the situation that happened with St. Anthony's is he was parked on a public street. He wasn't parked on any private property. They did alert police after it became aware that the vehicle had been there consistently for several days. And when police made contact with the individual, it was then determined that, he had extra stuff going on. And so that's why the arrest was made. But it's not illegal to park on a public street. It's not illegal to do the things. What was illegal was he had a firearm within so many feet of a school, and so that is a law, is that you cannot have a firearm within so many feet of a school. But more importantly is that it didn't raise any alarms until he had been there for several days. And so again, parents were appropriately reporting it to the school officials. They made contact with the police, and the police made contact with him and determined that he was a threat to the community at that time.
Well, that's a good deal. I mean, it's no telling what was prevented by somebody seeing something and saying something about it. And also, Mr. Boone came out to the Pear Orchard Neighborhood Association last Thursday, done a presentation. A lot of staff was there. Officer Morrow was there. No, Officer Riley, I think, was there. Yeah. But everybody, they done really good. It was a lot of questions. It was very informative. And one of the things I'm very, very happy about, most of the time we have a neighborhood association meeting, we'll have 15 people from staff there and 4 people from the neighborhood. Well, this time we had about 20 or 25 people from the neighborhood, and we got a lot of good information out there, and that was a real good presentation that Mr. Boone did. Told him next time, because he gave a lot of information out that Bart should have given out, so we'll get Bart there the next time. He did a great job.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Turner.
Yeah, I North End Neighborhood Association meeting, Councilman Sam, we had a packed house, right? We didn't have like 20, 30, we had about 50 in there, huh? So I just want to put it out there, North End showing up and showing out.
Well, the reason everybody from we didn't have that many at Pear Orchard because they call me on a daily basis, so I give them information out all day, every day. They have my cell phone number, and they can just call and ask me, and I'll let them know.
I'm gonna stop.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, would you like to address the St. Anthony school incident, what Chief Singletary called this?
Yes, yesterday, and Mayor happened to be at City Hall, and we were discussing something when Chief Singletary called to inform us about the situation as it was progressing with the St. Anthony School situation. He gave us an update, let us know what was happening, let us know what was going to happen. So we thank Chief Singletary for communicating that and communicating with that to myself and the mayor and letting us know before anything happened. So that was well coordinated by PD. I commend them for their work, a really good work at this point from what we know at this point. And we feel really grateful that they could have really mitigated a difficult situation.
Also, they FBI has been informed of the citizen, and so it is being taken care of locally and statewide. Thank you. City Attorney Reed.
So I would also like to clarify, based on the comments that were made today, that Councilman Getz has never made an inappropriate comment to me, so that wasn't referenced to me. I know that was said that there was a statement that was made, that he made a statement to the city attorney. And so for the public, that wasn't a comment that was addressed to me. I just feel like I have to say it. Secondly, I'd like to thank Angie. This is her last week with the city. I want to thank her for her years of service to us and everything that she's done with the city. And I just like to publicly say that I fully appreciate her and her role.
Thank you. Well, hold up.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I'd ask for everyone, please stand and applaud Angie Thomas on her retirement. That's all right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was first on my list.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
However, Angie Thomas, who has been employed for 29 years, has been assistant to myself and to the new city manager. Her retirement party will be at the event center this Friday from 3 to 6, and Angie will be retiring after 29 years. Many of you may not know who Angie is, but if you call our office, and if you have for many years, that is the voice that you will hear before you ever get to us. And so I would like to say congratulations on your retirement, Angie. She's going to be missed. She has really, really taken care of all of us. So I'm going to suck it up until Friday at the reception. I would also like to say today I read a proclamation for Southeast Texas Workforce Month beginning February, and they reported that Beaumont is looking really, really great. It is forecast that they will have to fill 49,000 jobs here in this area. So that's a lot of jobs coming to Beaumont, the Golden Triangle, Southeast Texas. There's a lot of planned expansion. I'm sure that we will have people near and far applying for jobs. So that's exciting news for our area, absolutely. ExxonMobil. Can't say enough. Thank you so very much for your partnership, for the work that you do in our city, in the South End, and we're just grateful. We're grateful for the work that you do with our city and the South End of town. Thank you so very much. As I say, we were really, really surprised about the check. We didn't know. Council didn't know about the check, so we were just as surprised as the audience. But thank you for the wonderful work that you do. And again, looking forward to the recycling program, something that's well needed. Also, on yesterday, I was at St. Anthony's School because it's Catholic School Week kicked off on yesterday. So I read to a pre-K class, and it was so funny. It was almost like everything I said. I had a cheering squad, and they was just so excited, and I read just a Dr. Seuss book. But Angie, I want you to come up to the podium so that we could give you your standing ovation because it's so deserved. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
To make sure the mayor gets the last word, I'd like to say thank you, Angie, personally. For, I couldn't have asked for a better person to work with me coming into this situation and not knowing the city and everything. You were there hand and foot for everything. So thank you for the sacrifices and the time you've done and for making my short time with you pleasurable. Thank you.
Well, we tried to keep her, y'all. We tried to tell her, you don't want to retire. But her mind is made up, and Friday will be her last day. But I also want to say to both groups from that presented today on the plumbing codes, it was a long dialogue, but it was a good dialogue. And I look forward to revisiting the situation in 2 weeks, and I believe we will have the answers that we need to move forward on this. I think all of you could tell by my vote that my mind was made up to move forward in the direction for the citizens and to the plumbers and the business owners here in Beaumont. But we always want to make sure that we're doing what's best for our constituency in this city. And last thing, if you know of a couple that has been married 50 plus years in Beaumont, we want to celebrate them on Valentine's Day here in Beaumont City Council meeting. Council falls on February the 14th. And so this year, I would like to present anyone that's been married 50 years or more. You deserve to be recognized. So, someone said amen. So, if you know of anyone, please, it will be on our website. So, or either contact City Hall, someone will direct you. We would like to have their name so that they can be recognized. You deserve to be recognized after 50 years of marriage. Again, thank you for coming.
Mayor, may I, just for a moment?
I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay. I just wanted to real quick thank everyone that sent the flowers were beautiful from the city, from Chief Earl White, all of the phone calls, the emails, the text messages, the cards on the passing of my mom. So I just wanted to thank you and Mayor Pro Tem Durio for attending her funeral. And I wanted to also address the comments that were made by Ms. Allen earlier, that I've been in and out of the office, but I will go back and listen to the minutes from the meeting that she referred to. And if there was an error, I've done this for 15 years, and I think this may be the second or third time that I've had to go back. And if there was a mistake made, I will definitely correct that, and I will definitely reach out to her to let her know.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that.
And I am so sorry before I adjourn. Mr. Boone, do you have anything you would like to say?
Just want to echo the comments on Angie's retirement. She will be sorely missed.
Absolutely. Bart?
I'll echo Chris's comments and all of y'all's. We will miss Angie.
Thank you. And Tim? I said Tim. I'm looking at you. I'm sorry, Todd. Semino. I'm sorry, and I kind of lost my place. I got a little emotional, but on this weekend, I would just like to say that I met two. Well, I'm sorry. I will be meeting the other one, but I met a lady named Beth King on Saturday. She turned 100 on January 27th. Went to her house and did a proclamation for her turning 100 and being a citizen of Beaumont. Of course, you hear 100 years old and you're thinking, I'm going to see somebody's just sitting there, not moving around. No, ma'am. She beat us outside to take pictures, and so I told Ms. Beth to be watching City Council meeting. I truly, truly enjoyed meeting her family, and she had a great birthday party on Saturday. And on tomorrow, I will go out and meet Miss Annie Brazil, who turned 104 on January 20th. And so Miss Brazil celebrated her birthday. The news went out, and I was trying to get there last week, but I couldn't make it. So she's expecting me on tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So that's 104 and a 100-year-old. I mean, they're sitting there they're waiting. She's waiting on me. So that's very, very exciting news to have citizens in our community, 100+ years old. So I would just like to say again, thank you for coming. Go out and spread the love. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.